All right, I'm going to call our meeting to order. This is our regular meeting of the Board of Supervisors for June 23rd, 2026, and thank you for being here. We'll start out with a moment of silence, or moments of silence this morning. I'm going to start with Supervisor Crandall.
Yes, I'd like to do a moment of silence for Dave Washburn. Dave had worked at Robinson Rancheria, leaves behind his family. He has his funeral, or they have his funeral this Friday, June 26th, at the Chapel of the Lakes, and they'll do a service, a celebration of life at the Robinson Rancheria Casino Conference Center from 1:30 to 5 for him and his family.
Thank you. And I have a moment of silence for Doc Starrin. Doc Starrin passed away June 15th of this year. He was 104 years old. He was a longtime resident of Soda Bay, Kelseyville, and Lakeport. And he was involved in the American Legion, the Hartley Masonic Lodge, the Veteran of Foreign Wars, the Kelseyville Lions Club, and the Lakeport Senior Center. He was born in 1922 in New York and spent his youth working for his father, Charles Starrin, in various states during the Great Depression and later building military bases. In World War II, he joined the U.S. Army Air Corps. He was a navigator on a B-24 and was involved in over 35 missions. During that time, he earned a Purple Heart. Returning to the U.S., he settled in California. He attended University Pacific and UC Berkeley, and after graduating, he spent time between San Francisco, where he had a periodontical practice for 30 years, and Lake County, where he enjoyed his second home. Upon retirement, he remained in Lake County permanently, and his last few years before he passed away were at Mountain View Assisted Living in Ukiah. And he's survived by numerous family members, and there'll be a service for him on July 2nd at the Lakeport Senior Center. Thank you. And Supervisor Crandall, would you lead us in the pledge? Yes. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. CAO, do we have any extra items not appearing on the agenda?
We have no extra items, Chair.
Thank you. We'll move on to approval of the consent agenda, and I'll ask at this time, do any supervisors have any consent items they wish to pull?
Did you have the list of them, or do you want me to go ahead and go through that?
Go ahead.
Not opened yet. Let's see. Let me see. Poll number 5.9.
Okay.
511. And 5.23. And that's it.
Okay, with that, I'll ask if there's any members of the public that wish to request any items be pulled. Nothing online? Phone user one, if you could identify yourself and give me the item number that you're requesting that we pull.
Sky Lewa, I would like to pull item 5.23 and item 5.24 for further discussion, please.
Okay, 5.23 was already pulled, so I've got 5.24 added. Was there anyone else, Carolyn? Okay, so I'd be ready for action.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the consent agenda with the exception of 5.9, 5.11, 5.23, and 5.24.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries 4-0. And next, we'll move on to our timed items. And we'll start with our 901 item, which is public input. And we'll start in the room. These are for anything that is not appearing on the agenda today. So we have somebody in the room. Go ahead and come forward, sir, and give us your name, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Yeah, good morning. Daniel Sinram, President of Lake County Farm Bureau. I would just like to introduce everyone to our new Executive Director, Serena Onote.
Thank you.
Hi, Board. This is Serena Onante with Lake County Farm Bureau Executive Director. I just want to say I'm very excited to be working with you and to be here. So thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate you coming in today, and welcome to the position. Do we have anyone else in the room? Go ahead and come forward.
Good morning, Board of Supervisors and everybody else. I wasn't supposed to even be here today, but due to some unforeseen circumstances, we are still here, but it won't be the last time I speak for a few weeks. I just wanted to remind you, as you're working on the RSO, that as you know, Lake County ranks 50 out of the 58 counties as far as income and poverty level goes. We have already received close to 20% rent increase over the last 4 years. There's just so many ways that the mobile home parks use us to pay for their expenses. And as you're going through I hope you're comparing really closely with the Humboldt RSO and of using the Gizmo lawyer, if need be, for counsel, so that we can have this move along and not have to pull anything, or if I don't know if you can pull things from the menu or how the item or whatever agenda. But to please look at all the aspects so that it doesn't get passed without addressing many of the things that are in the Humboldt RSO. I just want to bring to your attention and some of the things that these Caritas affordable housing does, which I had to write my extra $60 pass-through fee for them yesterday because I won't be here on the 1st, and I refused to put it in with my rent. So I wrote them a check for $60, and then I went and got $200 out of cash to pay for somebody else that those of us who live along the front had to hire to get our weeds cut because they don't cut the front. They're already knee-high in willows. When the water moves back, everything grows really fast. We all sit there. You can't get out of your house. Actually, it's very unsafe as far as, and the clock's not going in case you want to time me. I'll keep talking for longer, but I just thought, darn it. I thought I could just roll this morning. Darn it, you should have told me. I'd get a few more seconds then. So we have to keep the place up ourselves if we don't want to live in a really shoddy looking place. And it's really shoddy looking. The manager finally cut the weeds, and it's because I was videotaping them because I'm ready to start sending it all to Caritas. I have been leaving them alone as I've been dealing with this. One thing they already do is, before I moved in, they had put that we all have to pay the on the north side of our fences. There are fences between the homes. So everyone's responsible for the infrastructure there. We have to pay the north fence. And I sent you guys, I think, an email about my neighbor who is another boundary fence, and she's having to pay it. But actually, she can't, so her daughter is. Is my time up? Damn, that was fast.
Thank you.
I thought they weren't.
Next in the room.
Before we Good morning, Supervisors. My name is Tom Lasik. I'm going to mention cannabis, but I assure you this is not really about cannabis. It's about integrity. I know that at least a couple of you have campaigned on the platform of government integrity, and that's really good, but I would like to provide you an additional perspective on integrity. June 13th, the Australian Chief of Army, Mr. Morrison, Lieutenant General Morrison, gave a speech to his nation and to his army about the misconduct that was occurring within his officer corps and his non-commissioned officers. And there's a statement that he made that still resonates with leadership today. That statement is, the standard you walk past is the standard that you accept. What does that mean? It means that it's not enough for you as leaders to have personal integrity. As leaders, you have the responsibility to make sure those you lead also live up to those same standards. And if you tolerate less, then your integrity becomes less. We have good examples in this county of leaders that set high standards. The registrar is one that comes to mind. She constantly gets pressure on her and her staff to try to find a way to do things faster, but she refuses to compromise the sanctity of the vote. We have Sheriff Bingham, who I've heard on multiple occasions mention how he is severely strapped for staff, but he refuses to lower his standards. If deputies do not treat the community with the respect and dignity that he deserves, he will not have them on his department. We have a lot of other examples in the county, but unfortunately and with respect, I do not believe the board is holding some of its departments to that same standard. The board keeps walking past misconduct and unacceptable behavior. CDD once again falls into this category. A few weeks ago during the last cannabis hearing, he's not here today, but Supervisor Sabatier asked the CDD director why the FPZ language was struck out. The director misrepresented the facts and told Mr. Sabatier that it was a mistake. And during public comment, I pointed out it was not a mistake. It was actually voted on. But for some reason, the director doubled down on that falsehood and created another one suggesting I had it wrong. And the handout I just provided you is from the excerpt of the transcript from December 25th. It's on YouTube. You can see the timestamps, and you can see that they voted to strike out the language for the greenhouse, and they voted to strike out the language for the setbacks. And they knew full well, if you can see in the highlighted text, that it was, the intent was to gut the FPZ. It wasn't an accident. Director Turner oversaw that meeting. Planner Claiborne was also there, and I sat across from them and watched it happen. As you know, this is not the first time CD has been caught misleading the board. It happens consistently and repeatedly, not just with cannabis, but with just about every aspect of management. Again, it's not about FPZ, it's not about cannabis, it's not about a simple strike through. It's about watching your fellow colleagues being lied to and waiting for that behavior.
Thank you.
You get what you tolerate, and the standard you walk past is the standard you accept. You can do better. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else in the room? Do we have any online? Yes, we have phone user one. If you can identify yourself, please, you'll have 3 minutes.
Sky Lewa, Pillsbury Family Farms, and I want to talk today about good faith and bad faith. Our government often speaks about good faith efforts, and we hear that phrase repeatedly. We hear it when deadlines are missed, when projects are delayed, and when ordinances are postponed, and when records are unavailable, and when departments fail to provide answers. The public is told that our government is acting in good faith. What does good faith actually look like? Is it good faith efforts when people are told to pursue actions that are not found anywhere in your ordinance? Is it good faith efforts when one department passes the responsibility to another department and then that department sends the public elsewhere? Is it good faith when questions go unanswered for months or years? Is it a good faith effort when your public employees expose private information but nobody is held accountable? Is it good faith efforts when staff appear to be conducting investigations into some individuals while claiming they lack the authority when the public asks questions? From our side of the table, many of these actions do not look like good faith. They look like bad faith. And what concerns me most is the mentality that seems to exist within our county. It appears to be the belief that the government employees are the good players and that the public are the bad players. And the good players are trusted. The good players are given the benefit of the doubt. And the good players are allowed to make mistakes, delays, excuses, and have second chances. Meanwhile, the bad players are the people who ask questions. The bad players are the people who file complaints. The bad players is the public who submit public records requests. The bad players are the people who challenge the government's decision and ask for accountability. The bad players are the people who refuse to accept the simple answer of the government telling them, because we said so. What I see is a local government that feels comfortable speaking to the public, but not comfortable listening to us. Many residents, especially our elders and vulnerable populations, are treated with kindness and good words, but when they actually need answers, action, accountability, they are often ignored. The people who ask the difficult questions are not viewed as participants in government. They are treated as the obstacles to our government, and that is very backwards. Accountability is not bad faith. Transparency is not bad faith, and questioning authority is not bad faith. But the public is treated like the enemy. But the public is the reason your government exists in the first place. And a government reveals its true nature of understanding good faith not by how it treats its people who agree with it, but by how it treats the people who challenge it. Because if every question is viewed as an attack, if every complaint is viewed as a threat, and every request for accountability is viewed as an inconvenience, this county is not working on building public trust. You're simply kicking the can down the road while expecting us to keep believing that the good faith only applies to government and not to the people it serves. And that is something this board needs to seriously consider. Muleham.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else? Sterling?
Yes, good morning. Hopefully I can get the full board's attention since I only have 3 minutes with you guys to speak. The board created an energy policy ad hoc committee because it realized that need. Yet we continue to hear there is not enough money to complete an energy policy. At the same time, Lake County receives geothermal royalty revenue every year. Those funds should be looked at as a possible way to help pay for the development of an energy policy. If we have money to study projects, we should have money to create the rules that protects the public before these projects move forward. The timing is critical. Assembly Bill 531 has changed how energy projects may move forward in California. We also working on the General Plan 2050 right now. The draft is coming soon, and the decisions we make today will affect Lake County for decades. This is not just an opportunity. Community members have asked for energy policy. Members of GPAC have discussed the need for an energy policy. Multiple groups throughout the county have said the same thing. Lake County needs a clear plan before major energy projects move forward. At this point, many residents are asking a simple question. Is the board listening to the community, or is there already a plan that the public is not being told about? I am not accusing anyone of wrongdoing. I'm asking for transparency. An energy policy should address local control, community benefits, emergency preparation, environmental protections, ratepayer savings, and long-term revenue for Lake County. We should also be thinking about the future. If energy facilities are sold years from now, Lake County should have policies in place that allow us to explore ownership opportunities, public power partnerships, or other ways to keep those benefits local. We continue to hear about future budget deficits. Energy development should not simply benefit outside companies. It should help create long-term revenue, support infrastructure, strengthen emergency services, and provide benefit for future generations. The community has spoken. GPAC has discussed it. The need is clear. My request today is simple. Please prioritize an energy policy, explore using geothermal royalty funds to help pay for it, and provide the public with a clear timeline for when it will be completed. The Flash's proposal demonstrates exactly why an energy policy is needed for Lake County. Enters into major energy agreements. If this project is beneficial as it's being presented, then Lake County should first establish policies, protections, community benefits, and negotiate goals that will guide these decisions. We should create the rules first and evaluate projects second. Thank you. And I really hope that you guys are listening to the community, because a lot of us speak to you guys and we notice when people are listening, and we
Thank you,
notice when you
Sterling.
guys
That
aren't.
was your 3 minutes. Do we have anyone else online? Okay. I do have a public comment. As you may be aware, in the administrative office, our administrative staff has set up an American 250 display with a lot of information and items for kids. As part of that, they also put together a coloring contest, which this morning we selected the winners of that contest, and I want to announce their names. The first one is Bryson, age 8. The second one is Damien, age 6. The third one is Gonzalo, age 8. And the fourth one is Araya, age 6. And so if they're listening, they can come down to the county admin office anytime that we're open during the weekdays and get their prizes. And if not, we will get a hold of their parents and talk to them. But I wanted to thank also our admin staff and our CEO for all the work they did to get this display set up earlier this year. So thank you. And that will conclude our public comment, and we're going to move on to our pet of the week.
Good morning, board. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This here is Waldo. He's an unaltered male. He weighs about 100 pounds. He was found roaming around Hartley Road here in Lakeport. He's a big lover, loves to cuddle. He's good with other dogs. He's very calm and mellow. He's about 5 years of age, and he's currently looking for his forever home. So if you know anybody that needs a good guardian dog, he'll be available. He's available for adoption. Any questions for him? Anybody want to pet him? I'll let you pet him, sir. Board, any
Thank
questions?
you. Appreciate it. Do we have any comments on the pet of the week?
Good morning, board. I just want to point out that this is the 6th Pyrenees I've seen abandoned in less than 6 months, most of them on Highland Springs Road. These are very distinctive dogs. They're beautiful dogs. If anybody in the public or anybody in the county knows where these might be coming from, because it's not a coincidence that they're all Pyrenees and they're all being abandoned in the same place. My neighbor rescued one and turned it to a boarding place, and that abandoned dog had puppies, and I actually had one come to my property, and I called animal control, but it ran off before they could arrive, and another one was done. So we've had 6 just in the Highland Springs recreation area, or 5, including this one I'm finding. So please don't abandon the dogs. They are beautiful dogs. Pyrenees are just wonderful companions. If you can adopt this one, I think that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. We're going to move on to our 6.3, 915 item. This is a public hearing that was continued from June 2nd, May 19th, and April 28th of 2026. And it's for consideration of a resolution adopting resolutions submitted by the Lake County Fire Agencies and making findings and requesting the County of Lake to implement fire mitigation fees with the automatic inflation pursuant to Lake County Fire Mitigation Fee Ordinance. And we also have a request and a need to do a continuance of this public hearing again today. Do we have any comments from the board about that? Not seeing any. Anyone in the public want to make a comment regarding just whether or not we're going to continue this? Not seeing any in the room. Any online? No? Okay, so we have, I believe, we have a date and time certain of, was it July 21st at 10 a.m.? Okay. Do we need to take a formal vote on that? Since since it's a public hearing. Did you want to comment, Mr. County Council?
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. So if your board is ready to proceed with the motion, it's a motion to continue this public hearing to July 21st at 10 a.m.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Hearing none, that motion carries 4-0. Thank you. Now we're going to move on to our 6.4. No, we can't do that. Is it it's not 9:30 yet. Do you have a suggestion, CAO?
5.9?
We go to 5.9. Five point nine is approved travel exceeding 1,500 miles round trip to Juliet, Illinois, and any associated costs for Supervisor Jessica Pyska to attend the National Association of Counties NACO Rural Energy Academy Peer Exchange June 29th through July 1st, 2026. And you had pulled that, Supervisor. Do you want to
I did.
go ahead?
I know that we're coming up on, looking at, today we have before us a freeze on hiring. And I just think that this is, I don't think it's necessary travel. And I think that the deadlines have passed, but I saw some information in there. Are the reservations already made for travel and hotels?
Go ahead, Vice Chair.
Yeah. So the reservations have been made. Everything's non-refundable. This is a learning academy that I applied to. It's mostly paid for by NACO, so it's only basically getting to and from San Francisco that are the costs for the county. And so I applied to this in May. I was the alternate. Another county fell out, so they offered me the spot. We have a lot of conversations about preparing for our energy policy, and so that's why I asked to go.
Okay. I just felt it was tone deaf. The county didn't make those reservations, did they? The county did without board approval?
Well, this is the approval. If we travel,
But aren't we supposed to get approval before we book things? Just, shouldn't it have came before the board, before we invest, before we pay things?
CAO, did you want to make a
Yes.
comment, please?
Yes, I mean, in a perfect world, we will do that and can do that if the deadlines allow us to do that. But as you know, especially with conferences and trainings, the rooms go very quickly once they are announced. Should the board in the future or near future deem that the travel is unnecessary, then we will seek refunds.
Okay, because it looked like, of course, in the information, that this was back, the deadlines for this were back May 3rd. And so I felt that we did have time to bring it forward. And then it looked like somebody, I know, there was 12 counties selected. And so we applied for it. And this is also has to do with
it's primarily on battery and nuclear. But
nuclear,
a lot-
yes, nuclear and battery, which doesn't apply to us, at least at this moment. And I just didn't feel that under the circumstances that we're in, we just went through budgets and we are hurting. And I just don't feel that this is necessary. In all honesty, I think it's tone deaf that on the same agenda that we are looking at putting a freeze in place for hiring, that we are then wanting to spend money on travel. So that's my take on it. I cannot support it. And I know that you then received a letter in early June, which we have had some meetings since then. And so I feel that we need to first put our constituents before our own travel. And that until we can get back on our feet financially and get stable, I can't support this. And I have the amounts that we've spent on travel in the last few years. This year already, I think there's been almost 17,000 for Jessica traveling, which far exceeds anybody else. So I can't support this. I don't think my constituents would want me to.
Okay, Supervisor Crandall, you had your,
Did we approved the budget last week for, and travel's included in our budget when it comes to that. How much of that is reimbursed? Because I know that,
700 out of 15.
oh, I mean like total, because I know that when I go to anything like with the EPA or when I go to anything with RCRC or Golden State Natural Resources, if the county has to pay, then it's like some of it's reimbursed. So is a lot of this reimbursed?
So this, all of it is paid for by NACO except traveling to and from San Francisco.
Okay.
And it says up to $800 because of how it works. I have to take a 5:30 a.m. flight Monday morning to catch the, there's a shuttle, a shared shuttle from the airport out to where the event is. And then at the end of Wednesday after the event, I have to take the shuttle back to the airport, and then the flight comes in at midnight. So the $800 covers those 2 nights in San Francisco and then, driving there. So everything else is paid for. But, you're absolutely right. We have to, this is part of, looking at our travel budget is absolutely part of that. And I did weigh that. I did apply by the beginning of May. That's when the application closed. So I had put my application in. I found out on June 3rd about this. And so I did send it to admin, and we did talk about getting it on the agenda as soon as possible. It's an opportunity to help prepare us better for the, what we're doing in our energy policy committee. But, at the end of the day, I don't have to do this. I'm willing to do this. It's something that I feel really important, that's really important for the work that we're doing. But it's up to the board. And I do hear you, though. We are going to be looking at our travel and, tightening our belt. So anyway, it's mostly paid for.
I have down here on page 3 on I think it's page 3. Anyway, no, page 1. It states travel allowance. NACO is offering a travel allowance to all attendees in the amount of $700 to cover cost. And somewhere in there, I'd seen that the total cost was closer to $1,500, and I didn't highlight it, but I did see a cost of $15 and $700. It states in here is what NACO's willing to cover for travel.
And they're also paying for the hotel.
Okay.
They reserved the hotel.
Okay.
So they're reimbursing for the airfare.
Okay.
so I know you mentioned nuclear and battery. Is there other aspects in the training, like just general energy?
Well, it's generally like looking at the benefits for the community and figuring out, a lot of the things that we've been talking about in the energy policy.
Okay,
policy
so it
committee.
covers
So
things
it's-
that we'd be working on here. like-
Correct,
okay.
correct, because, they're not actually that different when you look at how energy is produced. So there's similar effects on the community and looking at how we can benefit and how we can plan. So there's a lot of crossover. That's why I thought it was important.
Okay. Anything else from the board before I open it to the public?
No, I just feel that it's tone deaf, and I think that we could probably get much of the information we need, because I didn't see where this is setting policies for counties, energy policies, which is what we are looking at doing. So I just don't see that it's as important. I think we have some really cool, some knowledgeable people and staff that could get this to us at no cost.
Okay. We'll go ahead and open it to the public. Is there anybody in the room that wishes to comment on this item?
Good morning, Mr. Chair and Supervisors. Margot Kambara. My comment is tangential. Just to leverage any information from energy conferences or workshops attended by your board or members of your board, it would be tremendously beneficial if that information would go into our comprehensive energy policy, and that comprehensive energy policy be referenced in our general plan. And the general plan, we're expecting the final drafts sometime this month. So as you consider this agenda item, please continue the follow-up to leverage all the utility of this conference and apply it directly to our general plan and to the comprehensive energy policy. At bare minimum, have a placeholder in the general plan for the energy policy to be developed. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the room? Do we have anyone online?
Yes, we have phone user 1.
Phone user 1, if you could state your name, you'll have 3 minutes.
Sky Lewell, Pillsbury Family Farms. Thank you, Helen, for pulling this item. It is of great concern given that previously we approved a travel agenda item for PISCO during the Robin spill, and a lot of constituents spoke up about that. If this is already being done and paid for by NACO, there should be no problem for Supervisor PISCO to come out of pocket to cover the $100 or even the $700. I just feel that if you're able to invest $100,000 into Adobe, you definitely have the money to cover your own costs. Don't put it on us as constituents to pay for your way. Muleham.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else online? Okay. Then I will close public comment, bring it back to the board. Yeah, I appreciate your concerns, but I think, you know, there is benefit being that it's related to energy, and that's something that we are working on. And Vice Chair is part of that policy committee, and we've also got, you know, this is an important topic for the public. It looks like maybe, is this paid for out of last year's budget, at least part of it? Because this starts at the end of June.
What's the total
So,
cost?
what was that?
What's the total cost to the county?
It sounded like that was $800 is the total cost to the county of Lake.
But Jessica said that it would almost all be reimbursed.
It says total cost to the county is estimated to be no more than $800.
And
That's in the memo.
yeah, I had read that, but you'd said there was a very small portion. So what's the total cost then?
That's the 800, I believe.
Yeah.
$800.
No more than $800.
To the county, and
Yes.
700 of it will be reimbursed, or all of it?
No, the total cost was more closer to 1,500.
Well, that's what,
$700, so you're right, so $1,500 probably total, $700 being reimbursed, the hotel being directly paid for by NACO, which means 800, up to 800. And it will probably be less than that. So.
okay, but the word most means over 50% of it. So it just, there is a cost to the county of 800, which is what I came up with as well.
And then, just 1 second, Supervisor Crandall, I don't know if I got an answer on is it last year, the current year fiscal budget is paying for at least part of it?
It'll depend when it's truly expensed as part of the end of year. I don't have an answer for that right now because I don't know when it's going to be truly expensed.
Okay.
It could fall in either fiscal year.
Well, I would think if the expense is made June
Yeah, it's
29th or
covered.
30th, it would be,
It's budgeted either way.
yeah, okay. Supervisor Crandall?
Yes, just want to highlight that one of the things that when I ran, I want to say the second term or the first term, I remember I had an opponent and a group of folks that would continuously talk about traveling to Sacramento or anywhere, DC, And not a lot of that was happening previous to my work. And it got a lot of attention. I want to say when I became part of the EPA Farm, Ranch, and Rural Communities, we got some people coming out here to look at the Sulphur, the Sulphur Bank EPA Superfund site, the Middle Creek restoration. We got some dollars towards that. We have to, sometimes go out of the area to bring attention and focus back in. One thing, Supervisor Pyska, I've noticed with your work is when you look online and you look in these CSAC papers and NACO papers, you're there talking about wildfire mitigation, you're there talking about your experiences for Lake County, our experiences, and bringing that story out to the public. Even in Hawaii, I know that situation, people hear Hawaii and they get upset, but when you think about it, Hawaii was one of the countries that had a fire, or not countries, but states that had a fire. They had shared their experience with us, with Sonoma, and a lot of that work gets done there. As long as you're bringing it back and giving it out like you've been doing, I don't see the issue. I think it's very important to tell the story about Lake County. A lot of DC folks, anyone from other areas, don't know where Lake County is. They think of Lake County, Illinois, or Lake County, Florida. So for me, I have no issue with this. It's budgeted either way, so I'll support it.
Yeah, I intend to support it just because the more training we get, the better we can be for our county, the more knowledge we can gain, and a lot of times we have to travel for that. So, is there anything else?
Nope.
No? Okay. Then we've already opened to the public, so I'd be ready for a motion or action.
I think too, though, one thing that Supervisor Owen mentioned is having it presented sooner or something like that. I can get on board with that. I understand that, and I think we do need to really be cognizant of travel or anything like that. So I can support you on that. If we can have these brought forward sooner, so it's not planned, if that makes sense, like you had said.
Yeah, and I agree, and that was a conversation we had during the agenda review, is I wanted to get it on as soon as possible, but it just, with timing and budgets, it didn't happen.
Okay. So with that, I'll motion to approve travel exceeding 1,500 miles round trip to Joliet, Illinois, and associated costs for Supervisor Jessica Pyska to attend the National Association of Counties Rural Energy Academy Peer Exchange, June 29th through July 1st, 2026.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
That motion carries 3-1. And we will move on now back to our 936.4 item, which is consideration and review of adopting California's joint strategy for sustainable outdoor recreation and wildfire resilience as a guiding document for resource protection, community investment, economic development, and public safety. And did you want to make any comments before we open up?
No, I'm just really excited to finally have this conversation. We do a lot of resilience work around here, and we have a lot of opportunities for developing our recreation economy. And I think the two priorities really align, and adopting this strategy will help bring a lot more funding in to do both. So I'm excited that we get to have this conversation. So thank you to our Chief Climate Resiliency Officer for bringing this, and also for the chair to co-sponsor.
Good morning, Board.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you. Good morning. Terry Logston, Chief Climate Resiliency Officer and Tribal Liaison. Many of you have heard me say that it's a term in permaculture about stacking functions, which in Lake County, many of us know, because you don't ever, your goal is never just one thing. It's got to hit multiple targets because we're so under-resourced. And so today I'm really happy to bring before your board for consideration the adoption of the California's Joint Strategy for Sustainable Outdoor Recreation and Wildfire Resilience. It was sponsored and initiated by the Mammoth Lakes Trails and Public Access Foundation. The CalRec Vision, which it's also called, the CalRec Vision project was adopted by the California Wildfire and Forest Resilience Task Force, which became which this then became a joint strategy for sustainable outdoor recreation and wildfire resilience. Okay. And so, as we all know, wildfires are not unique to Lake County or the state of California. Roughly 1/3 of California's forests face high or very high wildfire hazard. These areas are most likely to fuel the next megafires, which are considered fires that span over 100,000 acres, which we know all too well. These areas need fuel reduction treatments as soon as possible and ongoing to reduce the risk of high severity wildfire. Although much of our forested lands here in Lake County have burned since 2015, there are still thousands of acres of standing and fallen deadwood from the wildfires, as well as abundant regrowth in these areas that can fuel the next megafire. So, like the state as a whole, Lake County is defined by outdoor recreation as an economic driver. In alignment with the state, Lake County emphasizes sustainable outdoor recreation, and large wildfires can hinder that, as well as imperil our safety, economy, and way of life. So what can we do? The solution can be a joint strategy for California and Lake County. As your board is aware, Supervisor Peiska and I regularly attend the quarterly California Wildfire and Forest Resilience Task Force meetings. Task Force members include representatives from the California Natural Resources Agency, Cal EPA, Cal Fire, the Governor's Office of Land Use and Innovation, U.S. Forest Service, the Bureau of Land Management, and the Indigenous Stewardship Network, as well as RCRC, Rural County Representatives of California, and CSAC, the California State Association of Counties. They make up the task force and then have subcommittees. And they adopted this because the goals and the key actions of the CalRec vision that align with the task force resilience action plan include strengthening our sustainable outdoor recreation system, forest health and resilience, advance inclusion and access for all Californians, promote the health and safety of all Californians, and support the local economies that enhance sustainable recreation. And so the strategy, again, healthy forests and sustainable recreation, key actions are listed under each one of these four pillars: access for all, healthy Californians, and then California Jobs First, which when this was adopted was just getting started in California, and MLTPA, who there is a representative online in Zoom that can help answer any of your questions, is a part of as well. And so when you tie or stack all these functions together, it can help make Lake County a safer location, as well as more recreational opportunities. And so how it may unlock funding for the county, this doesn't cost anything to adopt, but what it does do is it gives Lake County, when we apply for state grants or any of our partnering agencies, like the Clear Lake Environmental Research Center, TERRA, the Tribal Eco Restoration Alliance, or CLERC, the the RCD, Lake County Resource Conservation District, when they're planning fuels reduction work on lands, by saying that the County of Lake has adopted this strategy, it can unlock other fundings through Prop 4, through the Regional Forest and Fire Capacity Program, which is open right now. CAL FIRE Forest Health grants are open right now, state parks recreation grants, and other federal infrastructure funds. By saying that we've adopted this joint strategy, tells the funders that we know recreation is important, but we also need to make sure that we're safe from wildfires. And so the final points, smart planning serves multiple purposes. Trails can become fuel breaks. So when our Public Works Department is working on updating trails plans or following their plan, maybe they're going to look at making those trails fuel breaks. Campgrounds can become staging areas. Recreation corridors can become evacuation routes. When communities across California adopt the joint strategy, a unified defense is created. And I'm hoping Mr. Wentworth from MLTPA can tell us how many counties have adopted this strategy. And so, any questions? Oh, I just also wanted to mention that included in your board packet and available online is the, not only this presentation, but a document that is the full joint strategy. And then there's also the goals that were created by MLTPA, which I have accidentally stapled to the back of mine, so I can't find the title of it. The goals and key actions which were adopted in December 12th of 2022. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anything from the board at this point? No, I think it's beneficial for us. I don't see any concerns.
Yeah.
It's just going to help us in the future. Did he want to say something?
Mhm.
Or, okay. Go ahead, sir.
Good morning. Congratulations and thank you to Lake County, should you all choose to adopt this joint strategy published by the state of California. You will be the 10th jurisdiction. I'm looping in recreation districts, but a number of counties that are adopting this document. As your staff advised, it does open up doors for multiple benefit opportunities funding-wise. As we know in California right now, the first point, there is no published policy document from the state around outdoor recreation, even though California is, I think, the largest recreation state in the country. So this is how we connect what we're doing in our local jurisdictions, our local counties to the state. But it also provides an opportunity to connect to Prop 4 funding, which is in front of us somewhat immediately through climate resilience opportunities, and certainly wildfire is one of those items. We can't thank you enough for considering this item. We wish you all the luck in the world with the vote, but you will be the 10th jurisdiction to adopt it, and we will celebrate that accordingly.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Wentworth.
All right. If there's nothing further, I'll open it up to the public. Go ahead.
Yes, no, looking at this and hearing about it today, it makes me think of there was a presentation that was given at one of my RCRC, one of those conventions they had, and it showed how, I think it was a group in Lassen County, they went through a fire and they actually put together an initiative where where they would ride mountain bikes and clear trails, and it went from county to county. And I would talk to Calusa about how we need to make that connection as well. And with us working on our paper parcels, and especially in the hills in the District 3, and I know in other hills, it would be key to start to have this in place. It's coming at the perfect time, I think. That way we can build off of it when it comes to the work we'll be doing, Supervisor or Chair Rasmussen.
Thank you. Go ahead, Vice
Yeah,
Chair.
I'm glad you brought that up. It's great timing, and like I mentioned before, it aligns really well because the work that Supervisor Owen and I were doing with the recreation agency, we've been working with Redwood Trail Alliance. We're bringing them in, and all the ways that we can really bring the funding in to do trail development and fuel breaks and forest health projects. Like, this is a win-win for all of us. So I'm really excited, and thanks, John, for joining us today. It's really great to see you. So if there's nothing else, I'll...
Okay. I think we have to open to the public.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you did.
I was getting there, but until I saw Supervisor Crandall. Anybody in the public? Yes, it looks like Angela.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for bringing this forward. I just wanted to ask, are any of these joint strategies, can they assist Lake County in advocating for the importance of Scott Dam and Lake Pillsbury remaining in place? Lake Pillsbury supports a lot of wildfire mitigation, outdoor recreation, the local economy, and community well-being. So if there's anything in here that can assist with that, that'd be wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the room? Anyone online? Julia, if you could go ahead.
Hi, good morning. Yeah, I just wanted to express my support for this joint strategy. This is Julia Sullivan-Shaban, the Executive Director of the Lake County Resource Conservation District. And I'll just offer a brief, timely example of how this joint strategy, I think, really aligns very naturally with the way that we are already approaching a lot of our work in Lake County, both from the conservation and restoration angles. So both of the letters of support that were on the consent agenda today from the Lake County Resource Conservation District related to forest health grants, CAL FIRE forest health grants, one of which is focused on the Mendocino National Forest and private properties in the Lake Pillsbury area, and another which is focused on Six Sigma Ranch in Lower Lake, as well as 9 neighboring private properties. And in both of those instances, both on federal lands in the Mendocino and then on the private Six Sigma property, both properties have extensive trail networks catering to hikers, mountain bikers, other people recreating on the weekends. And that trail infrastructure and public access was certainly something we took into consideration when we selected those sites, when we were building our prescriptions and proposed treatments. And so I think, this is something we're already doing and informs our approach to this work, but being able to reference Lake County's adoption of the joint strategy in those applications would make these funding proposals even more compelling and even stronger, just demonstrating that commitment to aligning both recreation and forest health and wildfire resilience objectives. So just wanted to offer those examples of projects that we're working to advance that are already very much in line with the purpose of this strategy. So thank you.
Thank you. Was there anyone else, Carolyn? No? I'll bring it back to the board for action.
Mr. Chair, I move that we adopt California's joint strategy for sustainable outdoor recreation and wildfire resilience as published by the California Wildfire and Forest Resilience Task Force in March of 2023 as a guiding document for resource protection, community investment, economic development, and public safety.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, that carries 4-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
And
Thank you all very much. Best of luck
John.
to
Thank you
all
for
of us.
joining us.
Thank you. Yeah,
thank you, sir.
thank you.
We have 2 minutes. Do we want to try something else before 5-minute break? Okay. We'll be in recess for 5 minutes.
What's that?
I mean, what?
I don't have a sheriff here.
Okay, that's fine.
Oh, right.
I'm going to call our meeting back to order, and we'll move on to our 6.5 10 a.m. item. This is consideration of a presentation and annual report from the Animal Care and Control Committee Advisory Board. And before the board starts, I just wanted to state that we haven't had one of these presentations in quite a number of years, but our bylaws do. The bylaws that the board created years ago for that committee expects that each year they would bring us a report in June of every year. And I just want to say I've spent most of the year going to the meetings. I know Supervisor Owen has been to quite a few of the meetings, and they've been working hard for at least the past 12 months to get this ready. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, Ryan, to give us the presentation.
Thank you. All right. I don't know if the microphone on. Oh.
Yeah, just make sure it's close enough to you.
Okay. Good morning, Chair and members of the board. My name is Ryan Peterson. I'm the District 2 Representative and Secretary of the Lake County Animal Control Advisory Board. On behalf of the Advisory Board, I am pleased to present our fiscal year 25-26 annual report. This report reflects the collaborative work of Advisory Board members and our review of animal care and control operations, adoption programs, public outreach efforts, facility needs, grant-funded initiatives, animal welfare concerns, and emergency preparedness capabilities throughout the reporting period. The Animal Care and the Animal Control Advisory Board was established by the Lake County Board of Supervisors to provide citizen input and recommendations regarding matters affecting Lake County animal care and control. Our responsibilities include reviewing animal control needs, services, facilities, fees, adoption procedures, grant expenditures, hours of operation, public education and outreach efforts, and special problems affecting animal welfare. The board serves as a liaison between the community, animal care and control, and the Board of Supervisors. One of the primary ways we fulfill this responsibility is through this annual report. During our review, the Advisory Board evaluated a wide range of issues affecting animal care and control operations. Our findings and recommendations fall into 7 primary categories: adoption programs, public education and outreach, facilities and infrastructure, fees and fiscal sustainability, animal welfare and enforcement, grant funding and resource development, and emergency preparedness. These categories represent the major areas where the board believes continued attention and investment can improve both animal welfare outcomes and public service delivery. Throughout our review, several reoccurring challenges emerged across multiple areas of operation. These include limited access to veterinary services, ongoing animal overpopulation concerns, volunteer recruitment and retention challenges, limited public awareness and available services, infrastructure and facility needs, and the long-term sustainability of programs that rely heavily on grant funding and partnerships. These challenges directly informed the recommendations that follow and represent areas the board believes warrant continued attention. The board found that adoption programs represent one of the greatest opportunities for improving outcomes for animals while reducing shelter populations. We identified several opportunities to strengthen adoption efforts, including modernization of online adoption resources, expanding social media outreach, development of foster and volunteer programs, continued adoption events, and stronger partnerships with rescue organizations. The board also identified limited veterinary access as a factor affecting adoption timelines and recommends continued exploration of partnerships and funding opportunities that may improve access to veterinary services. The board believes public education is one of the most effective long-term strategies for improving animal welfare throughout Lake County. We recommend development of a year-round public education program focused on responsible pet ownership, vaccination compliance, licensing, spay and neuter services, disaster preparedness, and available community resources. The board also supports expanding youth engagement, participation in community events, enhanced digital communication, and continued collaboration with community organizations and educational partners. The board recognizes that the animal care and control facility serves as a critical component of Lake County's public safety and animal welfare infrastructure. While the facility continues to meet many operational needs, opportunities exist to improve animal housing, medical and isolation facilities, adoption areas, visitor accommodations, volunteer training space, and overall operational efficiency. The board also supports continued exploration of grant funding partnerships, and sustainability projects that may support future facility improvements. The board reviewed current fees and recognizes the importance of balancing affordability with fiscal sustainability. Fees influence adoption participation, licensing compliance, and access to services. We recommend periodic review of fee schedules, comparison with neighboring jurisdictions, consideration of responsible ownership incentives, and evaluation of targeted discounts with when fiscally appropriate. The goal is to ensure fees remain effective, equitable, and supportive of both community needs and departmental operations. The board reviewed current animal welfare standards and enforcement practices and found that they remain an important component of animal care and control operations. We encourage continued evaluation of animal welfare standards, expansion of humane care education, enhanced collaboration among animal care and control, law enforcement, and prosecutors, and continued review of recognized best practice resources. The board believes education and collaboration remain among the most effective tools for improving animal welfare outcomes throughout the county. Grant funding has become an increasingly important resource supporting animal welfare initiatives in Lake County. The board reviewed successful grant-funded programs supporting spay and neuter services, veterinary access, community cat programs, and partnerships with nonprofit organizations. We encourage continued pursuit of state, federal, and nonprofit funding opportunities while maintaining strong accountability and reporting practices to ensure long-term success and sustainability. Emergency preparedness remains one of the most significant long-term issues affecting both animal welfare and public safety within Lake County. The board reviewed the history of LEAP, or lake evacuation and animal protection, and identified valuable lessons regarding volunteer coordination and disaster response. We recommend exploring development of a new animal disaster response program, strengthening regional partnerships, integrating animal evacuation planning into emergency management activities, and expanding public preparedness education. The board believes these efforts would significantly improve the county's ability to protect both animals and residents during future emergencies. One of the board's most important findings is that many of these issues are interconnected. Adoption outcomes, veterinary access, volunteer participation, facility needs, grant funding, and public education all influence one another. For that reason, we recommend development of a long-term strategic plan supported by measurable objectives, strong community partnerships, volunteer engagement, innovation, and data-driven decision-making. These efforts can help ensure sustainable progress over time. In closing, the advisory board recognizes the dedication and professionalism of animal care and control staff, volunteers, community partners, and residents who contribute to animal welfare throughout Lake County. Our recommendations focus on improving adoption outcomes, expanding public education, investing in facilities, strengthening animal welfare programs, pursuing grant funding opportunities, and enhancing emergency preparedness. On behalf of the advisory board, thank you for the opportunity to present this report. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Peterson. Do we have any comments or questions from board members at this point?
When we had brought forward the adding supervisors to that, is that coming forward soon.
I would need to check back in with county council. I know we had a meeting with you regarding, a while back regarding updating the bylaws to add supervisors in. And I don't know if we have a status, but it's still on the radar.
Okay.
It's still,
I just felt it was an appropriate time to ask that.
no, I appreciate that, and I think that the intent, so the rest of the board knows, is that we're going to come back with a request to assign 1 or 2 supervisors to the Animal Advisory Board, to see if the board's in favor of that at some point, hopefully soon. When the board created it years ago, I think it was in the 70s, they didn't assign a supervisor like some of our committees that we have. And I think it was beneficial, at least that's the feedback I've gotten from the advisory board, is that it's been beneficial to have supervisors present at those meetings, because we just kind of took it upon ourselves to go and try to assist them. So, and I'll just say again, I appreciate the work. I know, like I said, you guys worked on this for a year, and you guys are committed to trying to help us, provide for the best animal service program that we can get. So it's appreciated. And with that, I'll open it up to the public. Do we have anybody in the public that wants to comment? No, not seeing any in the room. Do we have anyone online? Okay.
I would just like to add, I want to thank the volunteers and the people that have stepped forward to be on that committee. And I think you guys are doing a great job. And I think we've seen some progress. And so that makes me really happy, because I know that that's been a huge issue throughout the county, the number of feral cats and unhoused dogs. So I think you guys are making a difference, and there's been some solutions, I think, and there's still a long ways to go. So I want to say thank you to everybody that's been serving on that committee.
Thank you. I would like to add, it was brought to my attention today that AB 478, the Found Act, was signed in by Governor Newsom in January. And what this act requires is that there be a program and policy put in place for emergency preparedness and things. So just to put it on the board's radar to make sure that animal care and control is in compliance with AB 478.
Supervisor Crandall.
Yeah, I wanted to appreciate what you mentioned about first off, thank you for the presentation. Sorry. I was just commenting on the discussion and the mention that you made about having supervisors on the advisory board, because it's important. The folks that are on that committee were you commonly asking me to be present, or we had a lot of conflicts and all of that. So having that as someone on that standing committee might be beneficial. I think at one time it was a group of folks that weren't, they were appointed, and it just became one of those issues. So I think having a supervisor there is going to help with that dynamic.
Thank you. And I did want just 2 more things quickly. I think at this point the idea will be, now that they've got the framework established, we would get an updated annual report every year, whether there's a presentation or not, but at least in the coming years we'll be getting an annual report. And I also wanted to just mention our current director, Ray Smith, has been great about showing up at all these meetings, although there's nothing in our bylaws that she's not required to be there, but she is engaging. She's trying to build a relationship with the advisory board, which I think is also in our benefit, and it helps out. And then lastly, I know that the county is the holder of a pot of funding from that previous LEAP situation that I would like to see eventually we work out how that money can be brought back in to use for that specific purpose that it was raised for with the animal rescue. So I think at some point that's probably going to come back in front of the board too.
And I know the comments from the board during the meetings with Director Ray She's a valuable asset, and we want to congratulate you on finding her.
Thank you. All right. We didn't have public comment, and we've discussed it. I think unless there's anything else, we're just going to receive and file the report. And thank you for being here.
Thank you, Board.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ryan.
And we're 3 minutes from our 10:30.
Chair, excuse me, Chair, I recommend that we try 7.2. That is the hiring freeze.
7.2. I will jump to that and read it out. This is consideration of A, declaring an informal hiring freeze and directing staff to implement an informal hiring freeze for all general fund positions effective July 1, 2026, and B, authorizing the county administrative officer to approve hiring freeze waiver requests where critical to the continuity of county operations or otherwise in the overwhelming county interest. And with that, I'll turn it over to the administrative office.
Thank you, Chair. As you may recall, last week during our budget hearings, we discussed proposing a hiring freeze and would come back this week. We've included the form that will be used and the standards within the form, and it's pursuant to Personnel Rule 502 that gives me that authority to do so. We do suggest it become effective July 1st, but I also recommend that any and all requests from different departments after the budget hearings, they'll still have to submit and be reviewed. That's all I have.
Okay. Do we have questions from board members or comments? Go ahead, Supervisor Owen.
I would like to see, I agree with it. I would like to see, and it's really unfortunate.
Microphone.
Sorry. I do agree with it. I know it's really unfortunate that we're in this position. I think that with those requests, I think that those requests should be brought before the board for the exceptions. I don't know how the other members feel about that, but we're going to have different departments with different needs, and so ultimately I think it should probably come before us. Because of this, I would like to also, before the final budget, I'd like to take a look at our travel expenses with the county, because that does go into the budget. So I would like to take another look at that.
Okay. CAO, do you have any comments on what was stated?
I have a clarification. I just want to make sure that it's not bringing the denials before the board, but bringing the exceptions.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Just clarifying.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that would mean that you would bring every exception to the board?
That's what I understand. That's what I'm hearing.
Okay. Do we have any other board comments before I open to the public? No? Okay, I'll go ahead and open it up to the public at this point. Go ahead.
Good morning, Board. Tom Lasik. Back when I had a job, we went through hiring freezes almost every other year, every third year. What I would also respectfully recommend is to also have a freeze on contractors. One of the things that a lot of departments did in my old line of work is they couldn't hire people because that would hit one side of the books, but there was no control over replacing staff shortages with contractors. And that was actually more expensive, but it allowed them to, at least on paper, appear to be compliant. So I would respectfully suggest that the freeze be extended to contractors as well. But also allow for interdepartmental transfer. So if one department is short, but there is a qualified person in another department, that transfer could be filled internally without raising the overall head count for the county. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else in the room?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would also like to request maybe considering a freeze on software purchases after the concerns that Supervisor Sabatier raised last week or the week before. And also, I agree with having for the board review any exceptions to the hiring freeze. It's more people looking at it, and departments do have different needs. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else in the room? Not seeing any, I'll move online. No one online. I'll close public comment, bring it back to the board. I'm good with the clarification on exceptions coming back to the board for a final sign off and approval. And at this point, we're just, I know there's been a couple of comments about other things, but we can't get into those today because we're just dealing with this specific.
I just wanted to throw that out there.
No, I was talking about more of the two items that came up from the public
Oh, okay.
that are outside of, they're different than this. So with that, go ahead.
Do I just motion to declare an informal hiring freeze?
Does that cover it, County
I mean,
Council?
I can read it, I just want to make sure that I'm reading the proper thing.
Yes, Mr.
Yes, please.
Thank you. So it's two motions. Under A, it would be a motion to declare an informal hiring freeze and direct staff to implement an informal hiring freeze for all general fund positions effective July 1, 2026.
So moved.
I have a motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, that carries 4-0. And we have a second part? Yes.
I may. So with the board discussion coming out of the board discussion today, the motion as revised would be to authorize the county administrative officer to present hiring freeze waiver request to your board for consideration.
For
That would be the hiring freeze waiver requests for an exception to the hiring freeze, correct?
Yeah, those exceptions.
Okay.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, that carries 4-0. And that will conclude item 7.2. I'm going to go back to item, our 1030 item 6.6, proposed findings of fact and decision in the appeal of Peter Lucchetti, PL 26-12. I'll turn it over to County Council.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So pursuant to your board's statement of intended decision in this hearing that's outlined in the subject matter that took place on May 19, 2026, staff has presented the attached findings of fact and decision that was made part of this agenda item packet. Your board on May 19, 2026 determined by a vote of 4-1 to deny the appeal. And if the findings of fact are acceptable to you, staff is recommending that you take the following two actions as outlined in the board memo.
Okay. Questions from board members? Not seeing any. Open it to the public. Anybody in the room? Not seeing any. Anyone online? No. Not seeing anyone in the room or online. I'll close public comment. Bring it back to the board.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the findings of fact and decision and authorize the chair to sign.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, that carries 4-0. And we can't move on to our 6 point.
There's
Go
another
ahead.
motion.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There is one more motion.
Oh, there is? Okay.
Mr. Chair, I move to deny the appeal.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
And that motion will carry 3-1. And that concludes that item. Suggestion?
7.3.
I'm going to move on to 7.3. This is a consideration of a presentation of Senate Bill SB 707 in relation to statutes under the Brown Act taking effect on July 1st, 2026. That was A, and B, consideration of adding Rule 16, County of Lake policy regarding remote access during Ralph M. Brown Act meetings to Section 2 of Chapter 1 of the County of Lakes Policies and Procedures, and I'll turn it over to County Council.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If I may just have a few seconds here, I'm trying to share the screen.
Yes.
Think that works? Okay. So there's two parts to this agenda item. The first part is a presentation, and the second part is the consideration of adding Rule 16 in the County of Lakes Policies and Procedures of Section 2, Chapter 1 of the County of Lakes Policies and Procedures, because that's part of the mandate that was provided under Senate Bill 707 when it was passed back in 2025, is for each county to adopt such a policy, and that was made a part of the agenda packet. So under the first part of this, the presentation, this is a presentation on the updates on the new laws under the Brown Act, amendments to the Brown Act that will take into effect on July 1, 2026. And just by way of background, there were updates that were also going to cover, provide an overview that took into effect, updates to the Brown Act that took into effect on January 1, 2026, and we'll go over those as well on a general level. But since we're coming into July 1, 2026, more appropriate for your board to be apprised of these latest updates to the Brown Act. So I'll start with just the general background of this. What is the Brown Act? It's authored by Ralph Milton Brown. Brown Act was passed in 1953 to safeguard the public's right to access and participate in government meetings within the state. And the Brown Act itself is found on California Government Code sections 54950 and 54963. The intent of the Brown Act is to, just on a general level, ensure meaningful public access to local government decisions. I skipped over a few there. So this takes us to Senate Bill 707, which was passed on or signed by Governor Newsom on October 3, 2025. It enacted significant amendments to the Brown Act, and there's two main changes to the updates to the Brown Act that will take into effect on July 1, 2026. First main update would be to SB 707 requires that members of the public be provided an opportunity to comment at the Board of Supervisors meeting through a remote two-way participation. As you may be aware, we already have had that in place. This memorializes it in the Brown Act itself, clarifies it even further, and confirms it. The second main update would be under SB 707. It mandates the board to adopt a policy to address disruptions in remote participation services, and that's the draft policy that was made a part of this agenda item packet presented to your board under the under sub-item B of this. And that would be a part that will cover for your board's consideration and possible approval. So without going through each and every single bullet point, I'll highlight some of these. These materials, by the way, are available, of course. They've been made a part of the agenda packet for your board's future reference and also for the public. But I'll just highlight a few of these bullet points. Effective July 1, 2026, the first two bullet points, actually, your board already has in place. I mentioned the remote two-way participation. We are a population. The county exceeds 30,000 in population, so that applies to us. We already have those in place. It also allows the limit on remote public comment period for both commenter and per item if consistent within in-person limits. Generally speaking, your board has implemented a practice pursuant to its own policy, county policy, to limit public comments to 3 minutes with certain exceptions at the discretion of the chair. So we also have that already in place, and that's just further memorialized as part of the updates to this Brown Act. It did outline at the last bullet point there certain exemptions to these new rules and some of these exemptions are judicial or administrative proceedings before your board, inspections of property, meetings with state or federal officials to discuss legislative or regulatory issues, or certain emergency situations. Much of these are already in place in the Brown Act. I think it further clarifies what these exceptions are. What I would suggest for any of these updates, including this last bullet point, if any members of your board has any questions on whether or not a certain exception will apply, I will encourage your board, of course, to contact our office. This is what part of my office's job is, to look into these exceptions, see what applies, to see what can be, what is allowed what is permissible under the Brown Act. Then this takes us to the main update regarding remote meeting disruptions. And this would be reflected under the draft policy that's presented to your board today. Effective July 1, 2026, it does, the counties are allowed to cease a remote meeting if technology fails. We've encountered that a few times in the course of the year. So now the state legislature is now addressing that issue by memorializing it, putting it in writing as an update to the Brown Act. It requires, it allows the cessation of the meeting if staff and your board is unable to fix the technological issue after 1 hour. But it also allows for closed session to occur during the technology failure.
One quick question. So, as of today, we wouldn't have to wait an hour, but under this, we're going to be required to wait an hour.
Correct.
Okay.
So currently, until July 1, it's not unique to our county. It has occurred in a few of our meetings. The counties have just taken the incorporated a standard of reasonable time, a reasonable effort, due diligence to try to fix the remote technological issue prior to taking further steps. Here it now memorializes it in the Brown Act, part of the Brown Act update, effective July 1. There has to be 1 hour. There has to be an attempt to fix it within 1 hour of the tech failure.
Quick question too. Is this going to apply to our town halls, our math meetings?
For Brown Act bodies, correct, yeah.
Yes,
And
okay.
There's other updates applicable to the Brown Act regarding remote appearance for advisory bodies that I'll get into as well. But as it relates to remote meeting disruptions, yes, if it's a Brown Act body, if it's a legislative or an entity that's subject to the Brown Act, then yes, these standards for remote meeting disruptions would also apply.
Thank you.
As part of this update, it requires a good faith effort to restore services during a break and an adoption via roll call vote. That good faith effort was attempted and public interest in continuing the meeting outweighs postponement. So this applies to a situation where after 1 hour, due diligence was made, there's still a technological concern, issue or failure, and so the board then reconvenes and puts it on the record. Obviously, with the technological failure, it won't be on video or there won't be any video access or remote access. But your board would still do a roll call vote making these findings after 1 hour, after an attempt to fix the issue.
Okay, we have a question.
Yeah, so with the municipal advisory committees, they don't have closed session per se, so what would be their?
In that case, I'm not aware off the top of my head of other exceptions to proceed with certain items. Without closed session items, I think what's left for that council or committee would be to try to fix the problem, take recess, try to resolve the technological failure, and if it's resolved, the meeting can come back. If it's not resolved within that 1 hour period, or after that 1 hour period, the committee or council reconvenes and puts these findings on the record, that good faith efforts was made, and then that the meeting, that the public interest in continuing the meeting outweighs postponement, and upon making those findings on a roll call vote, then the meeting can proceed without the video remote access.
And so you said something about putting it into their bylaws, or, I don't know.
Oh, and that would be the third bullet point. It requires the Board of Supervisors, and I have to confirm this further, and so I'll take that offline. Certainly, your County Board of Supervisors would be required to adopt such a policy on disruptions, and I think it could be expanded to committees and councils that your board appoints for members, Brown Act bodies that provides advice to your board. So that policy can also apply to those entities as well.
Could that be more lenient than the 1 hour? I know quite often a lot of these town halls only go about an hour and a half.
As far as I can tell, they're sticking with 1 hour.
Well, I mean, that's what I was gonna say. If we're gonna ask volunteers to hang out for an hour at night, I think that's unreasonable.
I do
So
too.
we have to, is there a way that if they have to take that hour time, that they have the option to just call the meeting?
Correct.
Because they can't.
That is always an option. With a remote disruption type of event, one option is to try to resolve it in an hour and follow these procedures. The other option is to just adjourn the meeting.
Supervisor Crandall.
So, well, and maybe it's because of the new SB 707, but I know that one of the other things to consider, I know with the municipal advisory committees, is that they record the meeting, so there's always a chance for someone to go on YouTube and PEG TV to watch what happened. That's if they can't fix it as of now. So I don't know. Would that be breaking this new initiative? And I'm trying to see if there's another way, because I just don't see some of the town halls closing for another hour. Some of them start at 5 or 6, and so you're pushing them into 9 o'clock or something, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think at least in part, and I could dig into this further, but at least the intent behind these new updates, it specifically addresses or pertains to the remote participation aspect of it. So if there is a remote disruption of that, because I'm aware with your board, as far as just viewing the meetings itself, there's multiple sources of that, so that if one fails, if there's another method or another option in real time to view that meeting in any way, then it wouldn't necessarily count as a remote disruption. However, if there is a remote meeting disruption or technological failure that inhibits or prevents a member of the public, remote member of the public to participate, then these rules would apply. The 1 hour due diligence to try to resolve the issue, or just adjourning the meeting. And the intent behind that is to provide an opportunity for members of the public, when remote participation is provided, and there's a technological failure, then that member of the public will then not be able to participate in that meeting.
So this is going to also require remote participation. Currently, that is not being offered at the mouth.
And I think there's eligibility requirements as to who would be required. Your board certainly is, because as I mentioned on one of the criteria here would be a population for your board of supervisors in a county with a jurisdiction of over 30,000 persons in population. Now, for these districts, they may be subject to certain exceptions to that main rule on who is required to have a two-way audio-visual.
Yeah, because if you break it down by committees, then none of them in the county will qualify.
Right. And so I think there are exceptions to this. Now, this presentation is primarily for your board, like as far as it applies. But those are the types of questions that my office can look into as to whether or not a specific category, certain committee would be subject to the two-way audio-visual requirement as a result of these new updates. That's set to take into effect July 1, 2026. And I'll also go over advisory bodies to your board as to what the remote participation requirements are. It's kind of related, but not directly related to what we're talking about here.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
The other updates, additional updates to under SB 701, set to take into effect July 1, 2026. It just adds new grounds for just cause for a board member's remote appearance. There's already provisions in place. Some of you may be aware already on the ability of a board member to do a remote appearance, to appear remotely and vote remotely in a board meeting. Immunocompromised family members, physical or family medical emergency, military service obligations among them. It just further fleshes out those exceptions and clarifies those exceptions that would allow a member of the board to participate in a meeting. Of course, I think it's already in place in the rules. In the meeting minutes, it must disclose the just cause used for the remote meeting, but it should not disclose, must not disclose medical or disability diagnosis information. Getting to advisory bodies now, and these are the entities that provide advice to your board, committees, talking committees, councils, right? Effective July 1, 2026, the Brown Act now allows non-decision-making advisory bodies to meet entirely remotely. It allows them, so it's permissive, with some qualifications and requirements. So there's some checklist of requirements that need to occur to satisfy that for an advisory body to meet remotely, entirely remotely. It does give your board of supervisors the power to authorize or revoke the remote meeting option. Must be considered at least twice a year, and it may be placed on the consent agenda. So on this issue of whether or not your board would allow an entirely remote meeting by an advisory body, must be your board has the power to authorize or revoke that. Must be revisited at least twice a year. And it does require still for these advisory bodies one in-person location for the public participation with staff present. Not necessarily the members of the advisory committee, but staff, presumably to manage the remote audiovisual component of that. So that's part of staff's duties. And other updates to this, you see there in the bullet point, I'll highlight a few of them. For elected members who are members of the advisory bodies, they cannot use flexibility beyond what is already existing, what already exists as part of remote participation options. So that basically what that means is they are still subject. For elected members, they can't go beyond what's already being allowed for remote participation. It exempts certain bodies with primary subject matter jurisdictions over elections, budgets, police oversight, privacy, taxes or tax spending, or library circulation. That's what the legislature has outlined as being exempt from this entirely remote option for advisory bodies. SB 707 also provides updates to the Brown Act regarding an outreach to underrepresented and non-English speaking communities. But it does add language as part of the update that legislative bodies have broad discretion. Your board has broad discretion to decide what would be reasonable for outreach and holds them to a standard of just reasonableness. And the outreach would consist of essentially providing them with information about the meetings, about your board meetings. And just a few more updates. That takes into effect on July 1, 2026, much of which we already have in place. It requires city councils and boards of supervisors to maintain a webpage dedicated to public meetings with a prominent link on the homepage, and clarifies the method to receive regular notice of these board meetings. Much of that we already have in place, and I think IT is also in the process of incorporating some of those features in the county's website. We get into now the other updates from SB 707 when it comes to remote meetings and participation. You see a lot of those updates. These updates are already in place. These are not updates that are set to take into effect on July 1 because they already took into effect on January 1, 2026. On the first bullet point there, it clarifies that of your board's existing authority to remove or limit participation for individuals for actual disruption. It also applies to members of the public participating remotely, so it provides that further clarification. It's actually consistent with the county's policies and procedures for public disruptions to the board meeting. Also confirms the California Attorney General opinion holding that remote participation is actually a reasonable accommodation under the Americans with Disabilities Act, the ADA. Other updates, general updates coming from SB 707. It does impose a new restriction on calling of a special meeting regarding salary schedules, or compensation for members of a legislative body. There's a lot of provisions that are built in here that have been fleshed out under the Brown Act as part of this update. So my general suggestion would be if there's any questions regarding certain actions related to these topics, please contact my office. We can flesh out those requirements, go through those checklists to see what can be done procedurally to address these items in a board meeting. And that's the end of that part of the presentation. Of course, the second part is as part of the agenda item packet. We have the draft well, really it's an addition of Rule 16 to Chapter 1, Section 2 of the County of Lakes Policies and Procedures that address the remote access, and this is part of the requirement under SB 707 for each county to adopt such a policy, and it's there. It's provided there for your board's consideration and approval, and staff is recommending that your board approve the amendments to Chapter 1, Section 2 of the policies and procedures by adding this Rule 16.
Thank you. Supervisor Crandall.
Yes. Disruptive commentator. I know that was brought up right during this presentation. What defines that? There's times when, there might be annoying commentators, or there might be commentators that are talking about, like sometimes someone will bring up like a nuclear reactor when we don't have that, or something, something that's, data centers, they may not be prevalent as of now, but they could be. There's specific things at times that aren't germane to what the meeting is. My policy has always been, even as the chair, is I just let them have their 3 minutes. But is it the chair's discretion to say, look, you know what I mean? Like, I just want to make sure. So there's a lot of times this happens in some of my municipal advisory committees, and so I want to make sure and be clear on that. What disruptive is and what leeway when it comes to the Brown Act that the chair has. That's becoming a big conflict at times in my municipal advisory committees. So I want to make sure and have that delineated if possible.
And for just generally speaking, I think our policies and procedures, particularly Rule 1 of Section 3 of Chapter 1 of the County of Lakes Policies and Procedures, it does address, at least on a general level, what would constitute as disruptive behavior. Certainly behavior that's to the extent conveyed in a manner that would disrupt the meeting, such that the meeting cannot it would be very difficult for the meeting to proceed. That would be considered as disruptive. And it gets even disruptive behavior, and it gets even into more specifics under our policy, which I think is consistent with what the Brown Act is contemplating as well. Under that Rule 1, it says all members shall, it would also apply for public comment or for members of the public, shall refrain from the use of profanity, emotional outbursts, personal attacks, or any speech or conduct which tends to bring the organization into disrepute, repute. And the chair may determine when orderly conduct of the meeting is not feasible owing to the disruptive behavior by the persons in attendance. It provides measures for addressing such a disruptive behavior. The chair may order the removal of the persons disrupting the meeting. The chair may also, and I've seen this in the past, may order recess to try to see if the disruptive behavior can be resolved. If order cannot be restored by removal of such persons, the chair may order the meeting room cleared and continue in session. So you have these specific measures in place, but I think much of it is based on a reasonable person standard of what one would consider as disruptive behavior, to the extent that it conveyed in a manner that would inhibit the continuation of the meeting itself with all the other items to be discussed.
I think too, it comes down to when we're having our meetings and a constituent comes up and wants to kind of go back and forth and banter. I know that there's times where we have to say, okay, just have your 3 minutes. This is very difficult to control in a municipal advisory capacity, because sometimes we're not there to even help with that. And a lot of times, even if we're there, it's still going to be pushed back and contested. So I just want to make sure that there's a way to provide tools to anyone that is leading one of those meetings. And I'm glad that you mentioned take a break or something along those lines, because it's just key. I've had to actually dissolve, or the board helped me dissolve an actual municipal advisory committee because it was very disruptive and very, there was really no actual business taking place. It was just an initiative or something, or an agenda outside of what was needed for the community. So I don't think we have that as of now. I just think that sometimes these trainings are very important, and so I want to be able to refer some folks to it, especially for the fact that it's a new Senate bill that's encouraging a lot of changes. So that's why I'm kind of throwing some of this stuff in there for you, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I just, for the first part of it, I think it's going to be imperative that we have a concise fact sheet or training document that we can all share. I think there's going to be a lot of incumbent on supervisors to train the town halls, but we've got over 65 committees, and all of us are part of many of those that are Brown Act committees. So I think some kind of a training document that we can start using for all of those Brown Act ones would be beneficial for us.
Would the sharing of this item with our Brown Act committees probably be able to handle a lot of that, because it has the same information we're getting?
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. So the materials here are available for members of the public, members of committees itself, advisory committees to your board. They're certainly available for their reference. In addition, my office is available to conduct training sessions, agendized training sessions for each committee, council. We've done that in the past as well, in relation to these Brown Act updates, as well as tailoring the trainings to be more advisory specific, more tailored for advisory committees as far as these updates are concerned. It's a good training tool as well. I always encourage for anything, and not just to your board, but also on these advisory committees, who are reaching out to your board, if they do have any questions. My office that's part of my office's job, is to try to answer and resolve those issues or questions that they may have related to these updates, or just in the Brown Act in general, procedural questions regarding the Brown Act.
Could we perhaps ask staff to just send an email with these attachments to the list of committees that would require the Brown Act? So it wouldn't be the ad hoc, but it'd be the others that we are on. You know, there's how many committees? A lot.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. If I may, County Council, I do recommend that we in admin help County Council basically develop a cheat sheet
Yeah.
that can accompany the training.
Good
And that
idea.
can be sent to all the committees, or you can hand them out to your committee members, or whichever, and then we could also post it and include it in our protocols.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea, because this is great, but there's some things in here that I don't know that they need to get sidetracked on.
I'll just have to say, I mean, a lot of times that people don't accept. You can say, this is the Brown Act, this is this. I mean, in this day and age with ChatGPT and Grok, you know, these AI, you know, tools help people with their, you know, with bringing stuff to the meetings and whatnot. And so what it does is it never contests what you're saying, because you're telling it what you want to say. A lot of times it pushes back against what we're trying to tell them. And so no matter what, I can, and this happened in my Lucerne town hall, I can tell them anything and they, nope, I'm going to push back. I'm not going to, you know, so, and they already have, a lot of people already have a distrust with government as it is. So they think there's a conspiracy or something taking place, when it's really just trying to hold a meeting and ensure that things move forward. So I just want to make sure that we're cognizant of that. And I want to make sure too that when people that are chosen to volunteer, or they're volunteering for these committees, that they have the support, because why do it if they're not going to be, you know, if they're not going to be able to conduct a meeting, and the people that are coming aren't going to be able to concentrate on what's you know, on the agenda, you know, and as opposed to having other things kind of force-fed to them. You know, it happens. Again, I had to deal with it with my Lucerne Town Hall. That's why it's now Central Town Hall.
What I was referring to primarily is, for instance, the recreation agency, you know, those that are on our list of assignments, getting them out to those that are required.
And I didn't see anything in here, because we do have numerous committees that don't do anything remote. It's all in person. But there's no new requirement that they all do remote, correct?
I believe so.
Oh, we did.
Okay.
So
I will
every,
double check, but the ones that are currently in place right now, there's a two-way audio-visual component that makes reference to jurisdictions, entities whose jurisdictions cover an area that's 30,000 or more. That's the starting point. There are other requirements there, but I think with what's in place right now, I think for the ones who don't do two-way audio-visual remote, I'll double check, but I believe that's.
well, go ahead.
I was thinking the same thing, and I wasn't sure which ones would apply and which ones wouldn't. There's going to be some, like our town halls, that they're not going to be representing 30,000, but you've got others, like for instance the Recreation Committee, or that's going to be representing more, you know, over 30,000. So I was assuming those would, and that's what I needed the help. That's why I was passing this on to admin, to make sure that it gets in the right hands.
And that can be a part of the fact sheet that staff will develop as well.
Right.
Yes, thank you.
As far as the criteria.
Yeah, because like the Animal Advisory Committee, would that be viewed as representing more than 30,000 people?
Yes.
So that's why I brought that up, because it's a countywide, but there's other committees that don't represent countywide.
Yeah.
All right, is there anything else from the board at this point? Then we'll open it up to the public. Go ahead.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. I'm going to speak first as a board member for PEG TV. I think I do have some questions that are hope are answered. I think you touched on them about the technological disruption for those of us that attend these advisory councils. As you've already pointed out, that you know, the Zoom isn't working and things like that. So we on PEG and Thomas specifically, we need to work together to figure out what to do if it's not working, how we would inform that advisory council, for example, that we're having an issue and what the triggers are. That's one thing. The other thing around technological disruptions is the actual building itself. We consistently and repeatedly hear that people can't hear because of the ambient noise, the echo, and things like that. So we would need some guidance on that. And also, as a PEG member, I would mention that if we're going to have to expand audiovisual to other areas, that, feel free to contact PEG TV to see if there's any way we might be able to help. As an individual, I would, wearing that hat, I really strongly encourage someone like Mr. Quintovano attending these advisory council meetings along with the cheat sheet and the guide sheets, because every advisory council has different bylaws and different understanding and different questions. And I don't think you as board members, although you're very skilled at it, would be able to answer all the questions that'll come up, and eventually they'll have to get back to Lloyd. So there are already a lot of questions. We already have very different practices on PEG TV with these various advisory councils on how they operate. Some of them are bi-directional, some of them are not. And so I think there's going to be a lot of really good questions. And then the last question I have is, it mentions disabilities, but for someone that, say, is homebound and is part of, say, a senior committee or in-home support services or something like that, I'm curious as to how they would be able to participate, because in the past it appeared that they were not able to participate. So it sounds like there's openings for that now, but I'd like to get that clarified. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else in the room?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Board, and County Council Quintovano. Thank you for this presentation and providing these updates and offering assistance to the town halls. You've been very instrumental in helping us navigate this system. I would like to find out on the 1 hour to fix before cessation, is a requirement that recording continue despite a technological failure, such as if the Board of Supervisors continues with no Zoom option? Are they still required to maintain the recording so that can be published later on? I think that would be beneficial. Also, defining a technological failure. If it's being streamed live on Zoom and on YouTube at the same time, both have chat features open and available, and one of them fails, can the meeting continue as long as there is one still available to the public? And my last question was, which Supervisor Crandall asked and got a response about disruption and what would be that qualification. And yeah, I would just like to know if because at Earth we do use Zoom and YouTube. So if we just had the YouTube, which seems to never fail, so if we just had that chat open and people can use that one and the Zoom does fail, I'd like to be able to explore that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the room?
Hi, yes, Daniel Sinram. I just have concerns about being able to shut down a meeting, to continue a meeting without it being available to the public, especially in one of the poorest counties in the state, where you do have, cell service is negligent in many areas. There's no high-speed internet except for Starlink, which many people can't afford, and transportation. So I do understand trying to move things along with some of these meetings, but this isn't a one-size-fits-all for the state of California. And in our particular case, it's important to maintain the availability for people to attend those meetings. And if the technology fails, I don't necessarily think that the meetings, and maybe the smaller meetings, okay, but certainly Board of Supervisors meetings for sure shouldn't be able to go on just because your technology failed.
Thank you.
Just my concerns.
Thank you. Next in the room.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and Supervisors. Margot Kambara. The municipal area councils showcase democracy in action. Supervisor Crandall demonstrates an enlightened view of public comment at the max. Allowing the speaker his or her 3 minutes of public comment, especially if the speaker's conduct is not disruptive, is ideal. As we approach the nation's 250th anniversary, celebrating freedom of speech by allowing public comment is very worthy. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anyone online? No. So I'll close public comment and bring it back to the board. Supervisor Crandall?
I just want to make sure that what I was saying, I don't want to limit anybody to what they're saying. If it's up to the chair or whoever, they have the discretion. That's what I was asking Lloyd, what discretion and what would consist of that. As anyone's noticed, when I'm chair, I let them speak, and I even make my colleagues upset because they're like telling me, hey, they're not talking about something. I'm like, just let them have the 3 minutes so we can be finished, and we'll talk about it if it's germane. So just wanted to make sure people knew that I'm not trying to limit anyone's voice.
Thank you. Were you wanting to say something, County Council, or go ahead?
I think that a number of the comments were pertaining primarily to the advisories, and it looks like that the advisories are kind of going to be exempt because they're not representing over 30,000. My concern is more like with the Farm Bureau. Are your meetings, I don't know if they're currently being streamed, but no? Okay. So those are the entities that were. Oh, you're not?
It's not a
Good.
Brown Act.
Okay, okay. I'm more concerned about entities that might be bound by Brown Act and not having the ability. So, thank you.
All right. So anything further from the board at this point, or are we ready for action?
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve amending Chapter 1, Section 2 of the County of Lakes Policy and Procedures by adding Rule 16, County of Lake Policy regarding remote access during Ralph M. Brown Act meetings.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, that carries 4-0. Thank you. We need to take a few minutes break.
Yeah, this is going to be a long.
Yeah, before we start the next item.
Yeah, there is. I'm testing. But she should be off. Is that mic off? And the other one's off too, right? That one.
Yeah. Did you still need a minute, or? Okay.
I'm happy to start anytime. Oh, that's a good.
And I'll call our. What's that?
He's got to get into the box.
Okay, so stand by.
Stand by.
Good, Sam? We'll call our meeting back to order, and we'll move on to our 6.711 a.m. item, which is public hearing. Consideration of ordinance to amend Chapter 21, Article 27 of the Lake County Code regarding commercial cannabis regulations, continued from March 10th, April 7th, and June 2nd, 2026. And I'll turn it over to Community Development Department.
Thank you. Mireya Turner, Community Development Director. This is the fourth opportunity the board has had to consider this draft ordinance. Just wanted to point out one change in the staff report that was done was to itemize the different parts or different aspects that were within the previous three discussions of the board to add items to consider for Article 73. So those are itemized there for the board's convenience now. Additionally, the option to pause the permitting process based on an active warrant has been pulled out of this draft ordinance and added to the Article 73 list just for further review. I was thankful to Holly Harris, who sent in a couple typographical errors she noted, most of which were on the red line to Article 27, but there is one change on page 12, line 24, that said I would like to change from all cannabis permittees shall submit a performance review report on an annual basis on June 1st to by June 1st. So that was one change that I don't think is substantive. I have a request for another change, which Mary took my copy.
Which page was that?
That is on the draft ordinance, page 12, line 24. I didn't change the ones on the red line, Article 27, because that's not, the ordinance is the mechanism or the instrument that really matters in this item. Additionally, I would request to add a little more supporting text into Section 6 regarding the CEQA analysis. Mary Senior Planner Mary Claiborne, who's here with me today, just went and got that scanned and emailed so that we can place it up on the screen. But that was my copy, so if I could borrow somebody's copy, I'll read it into the record. Thank you. Got it? Section 7 covers the environmental analysis of the ordinance. And just for additional clarification and supporting text, I would like to add a couple sentences, and I will read them. The amendments modify the ordinance to increase restrictions. They do not propose, approve, or fund any specific physical construction or ground disturbing activities. The revisions simply align the local municipal code with existing state law and policy without changing the intensity of use. This analysis also notes that any subsequent approvals facilitated by the ordinance will remain subject to full project-level CEQA review. I am hopeful that this additional detail and verbiage will be deemed non-substantive by County Council so that we can proceed with a first reading of this ordinance hopefully today. That concludes my presentation.
County Council.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the proposed amendments can be considered substantive, but your board can still proceed with the first reading of the ordinance. And it would just adopt, or not adopt, but approve the first reading of the ordinance as amended. The criteria for substantive or versus non-substantive amendments typically would come into play if there are any amendments made at the second reading.
Okay, thank you. Do we have anything, Supervisor, on?
Actually, I should have probably called you yesterday, and I had my hands full because some of this is kind of minor and some of it is a little bigger. I'm going to go ahead and go through a list of concerns and things that I'd caught, if I can get back to my page. Okay, the first thing I wanted to know is I'd like to see that this document has some teeth. One of the issues that I have had complaints on is abandoned, like old hoop houses and stuff where projects have been abandoned and it's an eyesore. So I don't know, I think that there's a $5,000 bond basically for that, but they're not being cleaned up. So I'd like to see something in here where we can, where it's high enough where we can actually abate those. And you know more about it than I do. I just know that I've had complaints. The next thing, actually one of them I believe that somebody had mentioned was Kindness Farms. It has been shut down, but it hasn't been cleaned up, and that's over, I think, in EJ's district. And then there's been a few others in other districts that people have called me about. Kindness Farm is what I was told it was. Kindness, I might have that wrong. Okay, let me see. The Farm Bureau has, I found out yesterday when I was talking with the Farm Bureau, they've been taken off, you know, where you get your little at the bottom of your boxes where you have to go to, they have to go to the different departments to sign off with the fire department, and the Farm Bureau has been removed from that.
Which form you're talking about?
It's in the application forms.
For a major use permit?
Yes. And they have been removed from that, so they're not being notified, and they would like to be notified. So that's,
Okay.
That's a simple little ask.
If I understand you correctly, that is when we receive an application for a major use permit and send it out for request for review. Is that correct?
Yes.
No problem. We'll make note of
Okay.
that.
So we'd like to have that put back on. You know, I know that somebody that was here prior to, I've heard rumor, that they had actually had, and we're probably not going to go that way, but just food for thought, cannabis overlay zone, which might have been easier you know, to say that this is the areas that it would work best in. But just food for thought, I wanted to throw that out. I thought it was kind of a cool idea, and might kind of, we'd have a little more control.
So you're saying that you'd like the board to reconsider allowed zoning districts and actually create some sort of overlay zone where cannabis is allowed to be cultivated?
That was a thought, and I wanted to bring it up for the board to just hear that and see what, and it's not obviously for discussion much today, but it's something to think about, and I don't know if that'd make your job easier. I don't know if it would, if we'd be able to control the effects on neighbors a little more. So that, and also knowing which areas have the enough water, for instance. So that was just a thought. Let me see. How are we dealing with the property owners? I know that they have to be listed on the applications now, but when they're LLCs, did we get that resolved?
Yes, that was in great detail in Article 27, but as the treasurer tax collector did speak to this board, we have made amendments to assist him that he is satisfied with, so that the gaps that existed previously are now getting addressed, regardless of what type of entity the applicant is.
Yeah, I had read the entire thing. I just didn't see the clarification referring to LLCs and some of
it
the
is
issues
any
we were
type.
having. So, okay,
Yeah,
perfect.
we worked with that office specifically to address that concern.
Okay. The next thing I seen in there throughout it was full-time employees are subject to the background checks, where it used to be all employees, which I'm fine with that, but there's no definition of full-time employees. Is somebody that works less than 35 hours a week? You know, so because there's ways to get around that then. So that was just a little bit of a concern. There's no definition for that.
Thank you.
The 2 consecutive years, I know for non-cultivation, I know I'd had, speaking to some of the cultivators, I guess that's fine. I'm going to leave that where it is. They were wanting to expand that a little bit.
I'd like to address that you bring up
Perfect.
a good point. Currently in our zoning code, for any use permit, if there is no activity for 2 years, it expires.
On the second year.
At the end of that second year.
Okay, the way I'd read it, it was 2 consecutive years, so after the second year, it was expired rather than on the third week.
And that was the purpose for making it clear that we're not going to grant opt-outs for 2 consecutive years.
Okay.
However, one thing I did add in this staff report, thank you for reminding me, is that the zoning code already also covers a way for it not to expire prior to those first 2 years.
Okay.
And that is what we call vesting. So I did add the code citation in there showing they have to come in and demonstrate through receipts and that they have accomplished or invested a certain amount of a percentage of the overall project cost, and then we would consider them vested and they would not expire. So for those cannabis projects or any other use permit project, so long as they are investing towards getting started, they're covered in the existing code. Should they do nothing and not do any investing in those first 2 years, then we do not cover that. That expires.
Okay. There is not a definition for farm preserve zone.
Farmland protection zone?
Yes, farmland protection zones. So we were wondering, we wanted to see what, we need a definition defining what qualifies for farmland protection, and we couldn't find anything in there. And I know that was written primarily for the cannabis industry coming in.
Right, and it was established by, I think, Ordinance 3101 and 03, and it was attached a map showing those boundaries.
Well, we
was
saw the maps,
included.
but the written definition of what qualifies to be a farmland protection is not in there.
Of what
The map
qualifies?
is, but not an actual definition of what it is.
I will note that. Thank you.
Okay. Let me see. Okay, draft ordinance, page 12. evidence of enrollment with the application regional, applicable regional water quality control board or state water resource control board for water quality protection programs or written verification from the applicant board that enrolls is not necessary. So we've changed it from where it was required to not being necessary. So we're taking out that requirement on page 12. And that's page 12 and 12, number 12, 12, 12. And I didn't feel comfortable with taking out that.
Page 12, line what?
It's Roman numeral 12.
Oh, thank you.
And it looks all good to the, all the way down to the not necessary.
Yeah, I see it.
So it looks like we are no longer requiring that.
If we could just pause for a moment, I want to check the context of that section. Because I
Okay.
think this section is really long, so I made one little change and had to add in a whole bunch of the existing language. I'd like to take a moment to be able to address that concern.
Okay, do you want me to hold or do you want me to go on?
There was a letter, right, before?
Well, if you see in Article 27, I actually highlighted in yellow the portion that talked about the notice of applicability, which is required. So if we could just have a moment, actually, I'll have Mary take a look at that section
Yeah.
so that we can come back and.
There's a number of inconsistencies we just wanted to clean up. So that
Well,
was.
it could be that this is not for cultivation. It could be that it's for something else, because the notice of applicability is only deals with something that's going to be using water. And so that has been, like, you wouldn't get a notice of applicability for your storefront if you're in retail.
Yeah, it just doesn't
I'm thinking
state
that might be it, but
retail.
we'll take a look at it so we can confirm.
Thank
But go
you.
ahead, please keep going.
Okay, page 13. Oh, okay, so in page 13, there's B pursuant to section, and then 5I. Above, the premises shall be inspected by the department on an annual or biannual basis, or less frequently if approved by the director. And I don't recall ever having any type of conversation on less frequently. I do recall talking about possibly biannually if they hadn't had any late fees or violations within the past 5 years, I believe is what we had mentioned. But this looks like it can be less frequent than even.
So biannual means twice a year, and that applies to any permittee that applies for reduced canopy or opt-out. So that means twice a year. It can be done less frequently in that it could be reduced to every other year after 5 years of no problems with their annual inspections by the discretion of the director.
Yeah, but that's not what it states.
That's
So that
actually
needs
what
to be
it states.
clarified.
Okay.
That it would be if, under these situations, under these circumstances, we could go to every other year, but.
That is clarified elsewhere in the ordinance, but I can repeat it here if you prefer.
Yes.
Okay.
Page 16.
Did you make note of that one? Page 16, I'm following.
Yes. The premises shall be inspected by the department on an annual basis and less frequently above the director. Approved by the director. So unless, less frequently, again, it's the same thing.
That's
It
the
was
same
just
wording that
same
existed
wording,
in
yes.
27. Yeah, and it does go on to report, let's see, where is it clarified? One moment. This is for the performance review, requiring the annual performance review.
Page 17, section 27.13 shall be removed entirely in its entirety, but I don't remember what that was. Was that in there?
Are you talking about the draft ordinance for my
Yes,
page 17?
I'm still on draft
has
ordinance.
CEQA and section 7.
No, page 17.
Ah, okay. So section 27.13 AU, section 34, I'm guessing, and I can double check on the redlined Article 27, AU is for processing or manufacturing, but let me find out for you. Also, I did write these citations on a separate table as well, so that it would be of assistance to the board. Yep, let me just see what I removed in its entirety. One moment. Guessing it's the reapplication.
Yeah, it just didn't have the follow-up on what it was.
Sure, yeah, and the ordinance where it says it shall be removed in its entirety, that is the section that is required for permit renewals, which is going away since the 10-year permit time limit is going away.
Now, did we make a decision on that? Or
Yes,
Okay, I don't recall making the decision.
that was 1 or 2 meetings ago.
What, I thought that was if there had not been any violations, that it could be.
That is in respect to annual compliance monitoring visits. That was going to go less than frequently. The term limit for the use permit was 10 years, and it was supported by this board at least once that be removed. And then that, if you're removing the 10-year term limit, then you also remove the need for a renewal of the use permit.
Can we look into that? Because I recall mentioning that if there had been no violations or.
We don't have a mechanism to only
Wouldn't it be on
remove
video?
term limits for certain permits. That would have led to a very different ordinance verbiage.
Yeah, I disagree with that. I think that if they have been good players and haven't had any violations, et cetera, I can see not having them come up for renewal. If they have been somebody we're struggling with, not putting their tags on their plants, et cetera, for those people, I think that they need to be scrutinized a little more.
It will not stop the annual performance review reports, nor would it stop the annual site monitoring visits. So all of that overseeing would still be done on a very consistent basis.
I just don't recall voting for that,
Okay,
so.
thank you.
Um,
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
As soon as you're done, then I wanted to go back to the first couple things, so I could address
Okay.
those as well.
Okay, I've got a few things here. On the CEQA, taking out the CEQA guidelines, I know right now, I don't know that we are in a place that we don't know that it isn't significant. I understand the planting, but what I'm more concerned about is water.
I'm not certain what you're talking about removing
Removing the
CEQA
CEQA
guidelines.
guidelines from it. It was page 18. General rules that CEQA applies only to projects which have the potential for causing a significant effect on the environment. I would think loss of water might be a significant effect.
That was referring to the common sense exemption, which is actually your concern is why the additional verbiage that I'm requesting to add is going to be very helpful, because it does specify that each project goes through its entire CEQA review that is project specific.
Okay.
So there is no way we're going to remove any of the CEQA
Okay,
analysis.
the way I had read this, it looked like it was being removed.
It's got a whole bunch of legalese sentences in front, so I don't blame you at all.
Okay. Article 18, is there any allowed, no, that one I think we're pretty good on. Article 19, page 2, reserved. You have the word reserved on page 2? And I don't know what the word reserved.
That is this totally cool trick that county council taught me, because if you just strike something, then you have to renumber everything in the ordinance. It's a formatting thing. And so if you're going to remove something, like removing in its entirety is one, you'll see that I only mentioned that once because that was at the very end and it wouldn't have prompted renumbering, so I wouldn't have to add the entire section in the ordinance. So instead, we just take that, we take out the text that we're removing and we put in the word reserved, so I don't have to renumber everything that comes after it.
Okay, okay, yeah, I didn't understand. It was actually in there a couple times, but,
I was super thankful that county council showed me that trick because
Okay.
it saved this from being maybe a 34-page ordinance.
oh, okay, so then on Article 27, I also had the item I had just mentioned about the reapplying, which I'd asked that we look into it. Over here, just some housekeeping items on your, let's see, what is this?
That's the table.
Okay, so on the first page, we have it where it's not allowed in SR, the cannabis, to be cultivated.
It was a board decision to remove that at the last
I
meeting.
do remember that one.
Yeah, great.
But yet you still have it in here on maximum canopy. In several places, you had removed the SR zone.
That's totally my bad. I'm sorry. That's a typo,
okay.
but luckily it is removed in the ordinance.
Okay, yeah, because it's just throughout here in a few
I appreciate
places
that.
that
Yeah.
are.
Thank you.
So if you wanted to, and then of course, I also have on here the $5,000 bond. Is it enough? And what can we do to be able to make sure we can clean up those abandoned grows?
We do have a 6-month remediation process requirement in the conditions of approval. We also do have remediation site visits, and we did conduct one with the farm that you were just mentioning earlier.
Oh, you did? Okay,
Yes,
good.
absolutely.
Perfect.
We're on it. We're not just going to leave them.
Perfect, okay.
Though, if somebody notices out in the community, notices a farm that has closed down, we'd appreciate it if they let us know, because it's possible maybe that we haven't not become aware of it yet, and we're happy to follow it up directly so that these closed farms don't linger.
I had a few others that people have mentioned, so
Awesome.
I
Yeah,
can
anytime,
those
let me know.
later. So, okay, that's it. Thank you.
Super. If we could go back, the 6-month remediation, good, we just covered that. We are adding the Farm Bureau back into the request for a review list. Cannabis overlay zone, I'm just going to leave that for the board to direct me if there's consensus on completely revamping the zoning districts and creating an overlay zone. Dealing with property owners if they're LLCs, yep, we got that one. Definition of a full-time employee, no problem. We can probably pull something from labor code. And a definition for FPZ you'd like added. If it's okay, I'd like to make that an Article 73 item, because so far we've been operating just fine based on the maps, which have become an overlay on our GIS system. So we're not adding any that aren't supposed to be in it, and we're not removing any that are included.
We're also, I know that there's some desire to add some more FPZ. And I know that we don't have any in District 1, and I know that there are some people down in District 1 that would like to look at adding the
Sure.
FPZ.
And
to
that
their-
is, I think that's the basis for at the last hearing, there was a request for us to, in Article 73, to revamp the FPZ wording so that should additional FPZ areas be added, the deadlines and the years for transitioning would then not be set on a calendar, but would be more timeless. So it would just move forward and it would impact the future ones should additional FPZ territories be added.
Yeah, I'd met with the Farm Bureau yesterday and went over that, and I know that there is
Super.
definitely some interest.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else from the board right now?
I'll just add this because I received an email about a letter, and I don't even know if I want to know how this is germane, but I also want to just be cognizant that it may not be something that's coming into what we're proposing. But there was an email alluding to a letter back in 2016 about exclusionary zones, and one of those being Double Eagle Ranch, and a letter. And it was my first month as a planning commissioner. I remember I remember this now because my date appointed was in September of 2016. But there was a letter from somebody to Robert Mazzarelli back then about exclusionary zones, and that how Double Eagle subdivision seemed unnecessary. Now, back then, I wish I would have known now, like, did the community have a chance to respond to that? And my whole point of bringing this up is when we look at these in the future or anything like this, to make sure that one person's say doesn't, that doesn't avoid or keep from having the community represented or something like that. So I'm just bringing it up because I got the email as well. So, and to admit my naivety back then.
Yeah, the exclusionary zones as they exist now are for things like the lake or public lands or city limits, things like that. If the board wanted to address actually now adding community by community as an exclusion zone, you're free to do so, but at the time that Mr. Massarelli was presenting the original ordinance, the board did not take it up at that time.
Right.
I've worked with the Double Eagle Ranch representative since I came back in 2022, and so far we haven't found a consistent, fair way to exclude a single community or to just make that as an exclusion zone. We've gone through a number of different possible options, but we always kind of hit a wall. So like we thought about making it a residential design overlay because that would not allow for it, or we could add it in there. But the community did not want that overlay.
The other thing is that it was already an exclusion zone, and then because
No,
of
it was
this letter,
never an exclusion zone.
Okay.
I never saw a draft ordinance that had Double Eagle as an exclusion zone that came before this board.
Okay.
But if I'm missing something, I apologize. But I was the one reviewing those draft ordinances.
Okay. And I was one that should have caught it back then. So.
Well, if the board would like to add a discussion of community-specific exclusion zones, which there wouldn't be that many because most of the communities that we have are in R1, R2, R3, and there is no cultivation in that. But let's add it to Article 73, if we could.
Yeah, what is the zoning for Double Eagle?
They're a combination, some is rural lands and some is rural residential. They're sort of a special community in that they don't have the residential design overlay, and two, their properties are not zoned residential. They're zoned rural lands or rural residential.
Okay, so and that would be something to bring up in Article 73.
It might be. Let me talk to County Council, and I'll add it to the bullet point list of things to consider for Article 73 for sure. Yeah, it's just that community has issues specifically because by doing it by zoning district, it is allowed. It is a permitted use in rural lands and rural residential, and that's where the conflict has arisen.
There was one thing I forgot.
You go ahead.
I know we had mentioned it, limiting the number of retail.
That is on the Article 73 list.
Okay, good.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I won't forget.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely.
All right, well, I mean, I'm in favor of looking at that situation we just talked about, but we can look at it in 73?
Yep.
Okay. All right. So it doesn't look like we have anything else from the board. I think we're going to try to push through if the board's okay. I don't know how much public comment we have. How many people in the room do we have that are going to speak? 4, 5, and what do we have online? Okay, we'll go ahead and open public comment. We'll start in the room, and the first person can come up and state your name, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Hi, again, Daniel Sinram, Lake County Farm Bureau. I have a few things I'd like to see. I don't think I'll get through everything, but first of all, I'd like to make clear on the use permit review, Maria. We would be interested, we used to be on the review of anything that had to do with agriculture. We're not looking at just cannabis on this, anything that has to do with any of our agricultural properties or rural lands or any of that, we would like to.
Does that include grading permits?
We used to be on those as well.
Okay.
This is like 20 years ago or 15 years ago. We used to get all that stuff, and so we would
no problem. We'd be
put
happy
in our
to add you on.
Yeah, thank you.
That's great.
So as far as one of the big things I'd like to mention here is talking about the FPZ, and I'd like to go to our Farm Bureau land use policy, one of the things that we promote is we look at the need for food will increase with an anticipated worldwide growth in population. So therefore, the recognition of farmland as an important resource should be a high priority. And so we have always advocated for protecting any farmland that we possibly can. And as it pertains to the farmland protection zone, one note on that, I did actually find, so you have in the zoning ordinance, Article 3, you have all the zones, different grading or different zoning definitions are given there. There is no FPZ zone described there, but I did find it in Article 68 under F. It's line 17 or number 17, and then also in Article 68 it goes A, B, C, D, E, F, G, B, C, D, E, F. So your lettering is off in that article as well. So as far as the expansion, we obviously would love to see the expansion of FPZ. One of our biggest concerns with protecting the Big Valley area was not just traditional agriculture, but also keeping the cannabis, helping protect the cannabis as well, because, you look at pears get sprayed, grapes get sprayed, and when you're looking at contamination and drift, that may not be compatible with a product that is getting ingested or burned, smoked. And so as far as that goes, we'd like to certainly welcome the expansion if that is all on the table. I did note, is this on?
Yeah.
Okay. I did notice that there was, in part of the documentation I was looking at, there was the removal of the setback from off-site residences, but then I also saw in another section it is still there, so I'm not sure on that. So,
Okay.
anyway,
Thank
thank you
you.
for your time. Also, I will just want to really commend the Cannabis Ordinance Review Committee. I know that was quite a process for those that spent time on that, and I do appreciate the time that they spent on that.
Thank you.
If I could address just one aspect there for clarification.
Go ahead. Real quick.
Thanks. The removal of setbacks was actually just on that table because it switched from being 100 per license type or permit type. It switched to being based on zoning district. And so that's why I was taken out of one section but added to another section.
Okay. Thank you. Go ahead, Angela.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you, Supervisor Crandall. I won't fault you. You're only there for about a month, so you're good there. And I agree that overlay maps may be beneficial in the day and age that we're in, where we're having all of these different entities that are trying to come into our community. So maybe overlay maps are a better option than exclusion zones, so that they can just see exactly where they are permissible and ideal. I won't go into the email with the letter. I think you guys got the gist of it, but that was in 2016. It was the county did create a draft exclusionary zone map, and the letter did come after that draft, and it was removed. I can speak with you more about that, Director Turner, if you'd like. But I think right now we are running into, in Double Eagle, just to give you a heads up, we are running into an issue with other commercial activities. Now we're looking at short-term camping, short-term rentals, geothermal, energy, that kind of stuff. Those are all commercial uses to us out there. So maybe we do need to specify where commercial overlays should be. Maybe that's a discussion that we need to have. And people that live in an area, I know I moved out there for the CCNRs. They protected me. I'm not asking you guys to uphold them, but I'm also asking not to push stuff out there. We can't support it. So, and then changing hats into a different thing, because unfortunately Holly couldn't be here today. I just wanted to point out that there appears to be that CDD has had roughly requests for roughly 1,500 temporary hoop houses. I don't know if that's accurate, but I don't know how many have been approved. And then the water board enrollment on page 12, line 6, is that something we're taking out? Or is that Article 73 and not being discussed today? I think that's all for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Next in the room.
Good afternoon, Chair Rasmussen and Supervisors. Margot Kambara. On March 10th, April 7th, and June 2nd of this year, your board continued this agenda item. Attorneys for Tom Lasik and Margot Kambara submitted public comment on their behalf in a letter dated March 6, 2026, and addressed your board. In this letter, the attorneys explained that the cannabis ordinance amendments are not exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act review as the county claims. Environmental review is required. Thank you.
Thank you. Next in the room.
Good morning, Board. Tom Lasik. Just a few things. One is, I do have a question on the addition of the vesting as an exception. What constitutes a sufficient amount of vesting for the 2-year opt-out to not be triggered? So it seems to me that without some defined criteria around that, you run into the same thing that Treasurer Sullivan had pointed out of people potentially gaming the system. If I put up a few fence posts, am I now sufficiently vested and don't have to, I can kick the can down a couple of more years. So I think that needs to be clarified. I'd also, on the conversation of rural lands, similar to Double Eagle, where I live, it is actually a subdivision. And it's also zoned rural. The overlays don't seem to keep up with the times, but it was approved and zoned as a subdivision back in 1983. And it was never really intended to have the amount of commercial activity that's currently going there at this moment. I also would respectfully point out that the language that was entered in about CEQA, that is not necessary because we're not reducing restrictions. I would respectfully disagree with that just in this last conversation. You've added the vesting exception. You've eliminated and reduced language regarding background checks, reduced inspections, eliminated the 10-year permit timeline, removed CEQA analysis, potentially removing the water board enrollment. You've exempted odor control from outdoor grows and changed step backs from its current state regarding zoning types. So those are all material changes that are not additional restrictions. It's a lowering of the chains, as they say. I would also say, as the language on biennial and biannual, that be clarified very specifically to either twice a year or once every other year, because biennial, biannual, semi-annual do get confused. And very often, as you pointed out, biannual can mean to some people every other year, and to others it means twice a year. So I think that deserves some specificity. And thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next in the room.
Hi, Charles Morris. Water. We've got to know there's water there before we do these projects. It's just insane. And it's not just cannabis, it's everything, okay? And it's how you use the water. I know in the basin where I live, there's a whole set of rules set down by the state of California in Sacramento. The courts have already ruled on it. And if you have some type of privilege, if you have a key to a gate, you can't go in and check and see how much water that guy's using. There's no monitoring of the creeks to make sure that the flow of the creeks are not being disused. We're just ignoring this stuff, and we're doing it, in my opinion, just for money. So it's something I would like to see more of when we talk about environment. Background checks. When I was a kid, we left high school, we went out, we worked in the vineyards, we went out and worked everywhere else. Having background checks of anybody that goes and works with cannabis, especially kids, it's only a good thing. I don't see any downside to that, especially since most of my family was in the cannabis business and they were involved in a lot of crime. And they can tell you that they were basically pushed out the door because they were more expensive than somebody else. And setbacks on odor, I mean, I'd just like to say, the setbacks are not enough. You're gonna have a lot more meetings about that kind of stuff unless you start investing in technology, something similar to what Calpine has done with rotten egg gas. Basically take the smell of sulfur out of the air. Cannabis produces sulfur also. That's all I got.
Thank you. I believe that was everybody in the room. Let's go online. Phone user one, please identify yourself. You'll have 3 minutes.
Kylie Well, Pillsbury Family Farms. And as a reminder, public comment is intended for the public to address this board, not for a back and forth. I want to speak about something that none of the supervisors or Director Turner in the Sheriff's Department want in the cannabis ordinance: applicant rights. We spend a great deal of time listening and seeing the board discuss what authority it has, yet there is little time spent discussing what rights the applicant has when the government says no. One topic of discussion that has been avoided both by staff and this board: what happens when a live scan results in a disqualification? What happens when someone obtains an expungement? What happens when court records change? What happens when an application believes the sheriff's determination is wrong? Today, I cannot find those answers anywhere in the ordinance. In an email dated on February 7, 2025, sent at 4:07 p.m., Community Development Director Maria Turner sent an email that says, response for external clarification on license revocation process, where Director Turner wrote in that email, the zoning ordinance does not address the option to petition the sheriff's office for reconsideration of a disqualification on a background check. Yet in that same email, she advised the applicant to petition the sheriff's office and stated that if they did not pursue that process, she would move forward with a revocation request. Honestly, think about what that means. The county was directing an applicant towards a process that it admits it is not written anywhere in the ordinance. Later, the county pointed to the ordinance stating that the sheriffs may evaluate the evidence of the rehabilitation and determine whether an applicant is suitable. But nowhere in the ordinance explain how applicants submit evidence, how the review is initiated, and what weight is given to an expungement, and what findings must be made, or how an applicant appeals unfavorable determination. That is the gap in your ordinance. And I believe it reflects a larger problem in how the government views the public. Too often, the public is treated as the bad player. The cannabis applicant is presumed to be hiding something. The permit holder is presumed to be the problem. And the citizen who is here requesting the questions and asking for things to be removed as the obstacle is the problem. Meanwhile, the government is treated as a good player whose decisions should simply be accepted without explanation. Accountability works both ways. If applicants are expected to disclose information, comply with regulations, and follow procedures, the government should be able to disclose its standards, explain its decisions, and have a meaningful avenue for appeal. If petitioning the sheriff is the process, put it in the ordinance. If rehabilitation evidence can be submitted, explain how. If expungements can be recognized, explain how. If they will not be recognized, explain why. If an applicant is denied, identify what appeal rights exist for them. Because right now, our ordinance tells us that a review can occur, but nowhere does it tell them how they have access to that review, how the decisions are reached, or how that can even be challenged. It's not transparency, and it's not due process. A permit holder's livelihood should not be spent on unwritten procedures, informal guidance, or whether they happen to know the right person to call. The ordinance should clearly establish notice requirements, rehabilitation standards, expungement procedures, and written findings and appeal rights for every applicant. Right now, the government should
Okay,
not
that
only
was
have
your,
rules for the
your
public,
30
but the public
seconds.
should have rules against the government. Muleham.
Thank you. Is there anybody else online? No. Okay, Director Turner.
Thank you. We are able to supply clarification regarding Supervisor Owen's concern about written verification from the State Water Resources Control Board. This is text that is already in Article 27. I did not make any change to it, but I want to explain it just so people aren't concerned. Evidence of enrollment with the applicable Regional Water Quality Control Board, which is what we call our NOA, the Notice of Applicability, is required when you're going to be using water, or when cannabis or cultivation is your main activity. If it's not required, then the Water Board does provide a statement that we take into the application that says these people are not using water as their main use. So like retail, processing, things like that don't use water, manufacturing, I don't know, but So if they don't use the water, then they don't need a notice of applicability, but they do need a written statement that that NOA is not required.
Could that be addressed more clearly on page 12, item number 12? That's the Roman numeral. Just because of the language in it right now.
Since we have not had a problem in the years that we've been taking it in, I'd like to put that as an Article 73 item, but then I'd be happy to explain it.
Okay,
Or
yeah.
we'll add more detail so nobody's confused.
We just need we just need it not to be ambiguous. And,
Noted.
written verification from the appropriate board that enrollment is not necessary makes it.
Yeah, we'll
it's
explain
not
why
defining.
further.
Okay.
Sure. And
Yeah,
also,
we
if the
put
board
that.
is amenable, I really liked the request that we go to every 2 years or, twice a year. I think that Mr. Lasik recommended
Yes,
that instead
yeah,
of
that
biannual.
definition,
I
because I
totally
read it-
agree. Biannual is confusing, so we'll switch
Yeah,
that wording
yeah,
in
I
the
had
future.
read it.
Yeah, we'll make it clear, like twice a year or every other year or, something like
Yeah,
that.
because it looked like, to me, I read it as every other year, and you're stating that it's twice a year.
Exactly.
So that was a bit
Yeah, we'll get that
ambiguous,
cleared
of
up.
course. And then also removing the or, where it states or, I don't have the exact language right in front of me right now, but or less frequently at the director's decision. So at every other year, that looked like it could be every 5 years.
Well, it's already existing in Article 27, and we haven't really hit any. I think we just reached our first one that has completed 5 years of no problems in their inspections. So I'll add additional clarification to that in Article 73 if it's okay with this board. I really want a first reading if it's possible.
Yeah, I don't know, there was a lot of issues, and maybe, I don't know if we can get together, I just want to see this in writing, the
I'm happy to
changes.
meet with you anytime.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you still have, or no? Yeah, okay.
And I know a lot of issues have been coming up that we've been talking about that are in the next article. But I think today we're okay with this. I think it's everything that we've been talking about for almost 4 years now. So I'm ready to move forward with this today, knowing that there are additional items to clean up in Article 73 than some of the issues that have been brought up today.
I may bring an item back to the board just for board direction on a few of these topics before drafting the ordinance because it would be so different depending on which way the board wants to go.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, I feel like there's definitely needs to be some language cleanup in this. So if we can do that, I just don't want, for instance, when we had stated, as I recall, the statement was that they wouldn't have to come back up for a reapplication if they hadn't had any late pays or violations. And what's in here is that automatically it's a forever permit.
My understanding is that the 10-year term limit removal was board direction, so that's what I've been moving on. If I was incorrect, please feel free to let me know because I will have to take this back and do some revisions, significant revisions.
Yeah, and I don't recall that. So that's why I said I'd like to see where we agreed.
I mean, I recall that it was board consensus and direction for the 10-year removal, just checking with the
Yeah,
chair.
that's what I recall.
Do you remember that?
Don't.
That's why I drafted the
mean, we
ordinance
talked
in the
about it
way
a
that I
lot.
did. Yeah, so the last 3 times you've seen this term limit be removed and also the renewal process removed. However, we did have discussion about how the annual compliance monitoring site visits, the annual performance review reports, all of that would, and also the exercising of revocation should there be continual violations, all of that remains in place. It just makes it more like every other use permit, which does not usually have time limits.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't recall that. So I would like to have proof of that if we're going to move with that.
Maybe we could trail it and pull the minutes over lunch and bring it back.
Yeah, can we do that? County Council?
I I don't know if the minutes would capture that since we have action minutes. I'd have to go watch the videos and show you the points of the video times.
I mean, I know we've had this in
Yes,
here.
this is the fourth time that I've presented.
Yeah,
a
but you know
10-year
what?
term
To be honest,
limit
I didn't
renewal.
go through it with a fine tooth comb because I'd found out before that you had pulled it and we had a lot of stuff on their agenda, so I
It's
didn't read
been
through
on
those.
every bullet pointed list and part of every presentation.
That doesn't mean when we know ahead of time that it's gonna be pulled that we took the time to go through it. I did not, because there was a lot of stuff on our agenda, so I focused on other items.
I would be happy to review the videos if you would like to continue this item to later in the day and come back.
Yeah, I know when we had this on June 3rd?
Second.
Second. We talked about it then and continued with that direction.
I'm happy to bring back citations.
you.
I wouldn't want to do something that was not the will of the board.
Okay, so we can trail this until later in the afternoon. County Council, do you want to weigh in?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. So, the matter of procedure, your board has three main options, one of which you already touched on, trailing the matter to see if further clarification can be made as to any possible amendments to be made today to the ordinance. The suggestion from my office would be, if there are going to be any amendments, substantive or otherwise, for purposes of first reading of the ordinance, that those amendments be placed on record, meaning verbatim language, word for word, on in which section of the ordinance would be proposed to be amendment if your board chooses to move forward with the first reading. Absent that, then you have these two other options. The one option would be to continue this public hearing to a date and time certain. It would still be a first reading to obtain to hammer out during that period of time prior to this continuance hearing date, the amendments themselves, revisions to the draft that's being presented to your board today, and come back at a date and time certain for first reading of the revised version of the ordinance. The third option really is in line with the first option, which is still moving forward with the first reading of the ordinance with amendments stated, without having to trail the matter. But again, the suggestion from my office would be to lay out specifically what those amendments are and where those amendments would take place in the draft ordinance that's before your board.
If I might request from the board to continue this item to July 7th, time certain, that would give Supervisor Owen and I time to sort of talk about all of her concerns without having to.
Yeah, that'd be amazing.
Yeah, that's
Great.
what I
Thank
was
you.
going to
My pleasure.
suggest anyway.
I don't want it to look like we're rushing this.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect,
Okay.
thank you.
Certainly.
So we'll just need action to continue at this point. Do I need to open to the public again?
At this point, just for purposes of covering all our bases
Right.
here, just on the continuance now, because that's now before
Right.
your board.
So I'm going to open it to the public just related to our discussion about continuing this to July 7th, not the details of the ordinance itself.
Again, Tom Lasik, I would support a continuance. I think there's still a few outstanding questions. I'm glad that the board has taken more time to take a look at it. I also want to thank CDD for prevailing and soldiering on. I think we're July 7th at 1:30 will probably be the 4-year anniversary of this exercise. So we can maybe have a cake and celebrate. So yeah, I think a continuance is necessary since you're getting closer, but there's still some outstanding issues. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else regarding the continuance?
I'd like to say thanks, Miriam. You've worked really hard. I've watched the play-by-play, and I learned that you got the hardest job in the room. So this is, I say continuance is great, but I was really hoping for the big enchilada, and this will all be over with, and we have something we can work with. But yeah, I guess if we can't finish it, we gotta keep going.
Thank you. Anybody else in the room? Not seeing any online? I'll bring it back to the board for a motion.
Well, I just
And
want to,
further.
yeah, make sure that we're all on the same page. So we're looking at the consensus on the 10-year
Right.
permit expiration and change the language from biannual to semi-annual or twice a year? Is that language?
I would be
that's-
happy to make that list, yeah, to present it in my staff report. I was thinking I would do that sort of wordsmithing on Article 73, but if we're doing
We're
changes
taking the
anyway,
time.
may as well do it
Yeah.
now. Yeah.
Okay. Is there anything else?
Well, I had a whole list of things that I think I had brought up that I'd like to go over with her. And I think there's one thing that I left off here and I can't remember for the life of me what it was.
Okay.
But you will have time now.
I will.
Okay. Anything, go ahead, CAO.
Yes, do we have a time certain?
Yes, we do.
1:30.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah, we do, so we just need a motion if there's nothing further.
I moved that we continue this on July 7th at 1:30.
Second.
I have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? That carries 4-0.
Thank you.
And at this point, we're gonna take a lunch break until 1:25.